All right, let us call to order the Policies and Priorities Committee meeting for Monday, May 15th, 2023. And let me start by adding 1.1. I'd like to welcome our newest member of the senior staff, Chief Administrative Officer Brian Woodward. Thank you very much for showing up today on your first day. I believe you also have a senior staff who is only a little more experienced here in Tumble Ridge than you are. Could you please introduce him as well, please?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate being here. I'm looking forward to our meetings and our activities. Thank you very much.
And could you introduce Mr. Bento, please?
Great. Dennis, would you like to stand up and introduce yourself?
Your Worship and Council, my name is Dennis Bento. Glad to be here.
Welcome. Mayor, you want to say something already? Okay. And on to approval of the agenda. So we recommend that all items in the May 15th, 2023 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting agenda be approved as presented. Any comments? Oh, seconder, please. Thank you. Let's go with Mr. Klikash, or Councillor Klikash, excuse me. And all in favor? What's the term? Carried. Thank you. All right. So next item, adoption of the minutes. Mayor Kakalka? Oh, I do? Okay. April 11th, 2023, Policies and Priorities Committee meeting minutes. Recommendations.
That the April 11th, 2023 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting minutes be adopted as presented.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Dussault. And any discussion? Call the vote. All in favor? Carried. Moving on to reports. So transfer station asphalt shingles. Report dated May 15th, 2023 from Director of Operations and Infrastructure regarding the acceptance of asphalt shingles at the transfer station. Do we have a recommendation? Councillor Julik.
The council received this report for discussion.
Is there a seconder? Mayor Kurkauka, thank you. Any comments? Call the vote.
I have comments.
Oh, that's comments. Sorry, my bad. Let's go with Councillor Julik.
You're giving me the look. Oh, all right. That's why he's giving me the look. All right.
So seconder?
I thought we had a second.
No, we did have a seconder. It's discussion.
Now you do have to call the vote about discussion.
All right, call the vote for discussion. All in favor? Thank you. And discussion, Councillor Julik.
So I was looking at this and I'm in favor of having a flat fee for disposal. But I don't know what we would have to do to carry that on. And then what would be the closest place to dispose of shingles? I think it's Chetwynd, but I'm not positive. I would like to do a fee on the disposal of shingles. I'm just not sure what that would look like. If for maybe our residents, it's okay, but I feel like we probably have some coming in from out of town. I don't know. I'd like to hear from other council who've debated on this prior.
All right, Mayor Kurkauka.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, so I actually asked staff to add this just because of the when it was first advertised by the district that we were going to cease receiving asphalt shingles. There was no timeline put it, but I understand it was due to staff going to be going down and doing some work and repairs around the area down at the transfer station. my only thought there is I think we still need to take them. If we don't, they're going to end up in the back woods. And I know I've partaked in the cleanups before, and I don't think it'd be fair to see our non-for-profit societies having to go up and clean them out, and the volunteers that came from the town. So my thought is there is in the report the concept that we can use the other laydown yard for a short time until they can finish their construction of whatever they're going to be doing down at the transfer station. And I do believe there should be a charge. I believe when this first came forward, and I'd have to go back and look, but I know in the discussion and debating about these bins coming in regards to asphalt shingles there was to be a charge. And I understand from staff side back at that point was a scale. And I know council was not in favor of looking at trying to put a scale in there, the expense of it and all that. But we were looking and asking them to do a flat fee. We have a concept or idea what they do charge in the other transfer stations via Chetwynd and the other organizations around the piece. So to me, I think we can use that, and I think there should be. I think there should be a charge. I mean, one, you have to pull the building permit out anyways, and you get your refund back previous to District of Tunbridge receiving asphalt shingles at our transfer station. You'd have to have proof that you did take them to Chetwynd or wherever the other drop-off centers are with a signature to prove that you paid for them to get your money back from your building permit. So I think we can do the same thing here. I would like to know from staff, I understand the reasoning staff is looking to not take the shingles for whatever amount of time it is that they need to do their renovations down there. But how we implement a charging system, and to me, I would like to see the push that it is quicker than not in regards to making a fee, expediting that part of it until staff can come back with the transfer services and stuff. I know they're working on the bylaws and stuff like that, but I'd like to see a fee added fairly expedited on that, because I don't believe we should be dropping them down there for free. We paid a removal. I can't remember the totals are in there for the tipping fees and the trucking and stuff, but I think Councillor Julik, you mentioned it. Are they all from Tumble Ridge? I mean, if you're advertising that you're receiving free shingles at the transfer station in Tumble Ridge and you're a construction business in one of our other municipalities, pretty sure it's easy enough to load up your dump truck or your dump trailer and bring them to Tumble Ridge for free. It would save you on fuel. I think it's about $500 or $550 a house for a house roof for the Tumble Ridge size. As a weight when you go into Chetwynd. So I think I think council's got to give that direction. I would like to see us look at making sure that staff recommendation is they say they can use the other laydown yard for asphalt shingles. I think we should be receiving, because I know where they're going to end up. I understand that there's going to be an extra cost if we decide to do that, because eventually staff will have to take them from there to whatever spot they're going to put them in the transfer station down below. But I think that fee is well worth that compared to seeing them in our bush. So,
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Noxana.
I'm not opposed to a fee for dumping shingles. My concern is it's public knowledge that our tipping station or our transfer station is free at this point. What happens when a contractor comes to town to dump shingles and it's a fee? Do they go to the bush? Because there is currently piles of shingles being found in the bush this spring. Out at Bear Hole, anywhere else you look, there's going to be garbage in our bush. The other issue I would have is if you get charged the fee when you dump, that doesn't deter people from dumping shingles in the bush. So I like the idea of whether it's a rebate or you prepay for your dump when you get your permit, something. Because if you've already paid for it, I feel like you're more likely to use that service.
Mayor Kirkhope, do you have a question for Councillor Noxana?
if I may, thank you. Yeah, and I was looking at when they come to get their business license, or sorry, their construction permit, right? That they pay, I believe right now, I mean, I don't want to speak for staff. Staff can be able to answer that, but I think it's a couple $100 now to get a building permit. Depends on what you're doing. They should add that fee right on top of it. If staff says recommended shingle disposal is $550 or $600, should be added immediately onto that permit, and they need to have a signature from our transfer station to receive their refund. And to me, when it comes from out of town, and I understand, yeah, these people can still come to Tunbridge and dump them in our bush. It's probably happened. They probably never even went to our transfer station, just come up the highway and dump them in the bush. I would hate to be an individual that's caught doing that in regards to the pollution and stuff like that. That's a huge fine. And I think we can talk to our counterparts through the PRD directors and just see what they're doing down there, and if there's a way of making sure that if they're pulling permits out of Dawes Creek, that there's actually proof. You know, they can go back and back check and say, oh, this person never came back for their money. They must have dumped them somewhere, right? So that would be my thoughts. Again, I don't want to put a bunch of work on staff, but I think we need to not let it happen down there for free for shingles. I don't think we should be charging for people taking household garbage down there and stuff like that, but definitely the shingle thing.
I'm going to go to the CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. although I'm not familiar with it, I spent a little bit of time with a review with the Director of Operations, and the cost of the removal of those shingles were over $5,000, which was a significant cost to the municipality. And I believe that the Director of Operations can either estimate the cost when they're coming into the landfill, or again, as the mayor pointed out, we can have a surcharge that goes with the building permit on those shingles, and I think that's a good idea as well. And the Director of Corporate Services also had some recommendations as well.
Recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Woodward, CAO, through to Chair and Council. I'd just like to, just for Council's information, you currently do not need a building permit to do your shingles. So that is something that we would need to, we can work around something for that. So just so you know, because I know you're talking about when a person comes in to pull a permit for their shingles. Right now, we don't need a building permit to do shingles. So we'll have to come up with something else.
Thank you for that information.
And we can, there are 3 bylaws that we would need to amend just to get this thing temporarily going with the, to be able to charge the fees and charges for the dump, or, taking it to the transfer station. So it would be our fees and charges bylaw, our solid waste bylaw, and our building and plumbing bylaws. Just for your information.
Thank you. All right, thank you for your patience. Councillor Dussault.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with the core fee. I think that's a great idea, and if we need to look at these bylaws, to amend these bylaws, then I think that's something we should probably be doing. Also, too, with the dumping of people coming in, I think we need to implement a program of showing that you live here, instead of people coming from outside and from all over filling up our landfill. But yeah, I think definitely we need a fee, and it should be some sort of core program for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kikash.
Yes, under bylaw 600, building bylaw 600, you can do it through the demolition part of the bylaw. In other words, you're actually removing something from the building, so it's classed as demolition. So then you can charge a fee on that, make a permit and charge a fee on that. That's what we did before.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Julik.
Yeah, this kind of just opens up a whole different line, or a whole line of thought for me. Starting with, I definitely would like to have staff come back and see what is comparable in other communities, like our closer communities, to see what their fees and that kind of thing are. To Councillor Dussault's point about, because we have free dumping, people coming in from out of town, and we have to pay for that to be disposed of. To Councillor Noxana's point, we all know, and Mayor Kakauka's, we all know what it looks like out in the bush, because people prefer to dump their garbage in the bush than wait for the landfill to open. I would possibly like to revisit having our dump open 7 days a week. Like, I know that would be a cost, but I wonder if the trade-off would be worth it. And again, I don't know. Like, I don't know if we've ever seriously looked at charging for tipping fees. And I don't know what that looks like in other communities. So there might be some reports out there that we could just bring back, and that's all it would take. But in the meantime, I think that we're all kind of in favor of this tipping fees for the asphalt shingles. So I wonder if we could ask staff to come back with some comparisons, so we have a place to start without maybe having to do the scales. And then, like Ms. Torvillas mentioned, that we would have to amend some bylaws too if we decided to go that way.
Thank you. Mayor Kakauka.
Yeah, I think I'd like to hear from staff just in regards to some of the questions that Councillor Julik asked before I'd ask mine, if I may. Sure.
Chairman, the Director of Operations would like to speak to this matter.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. One of the things I'd like to clarify here is that we do not have a landfill. We have a transfer station, so Our responsibility is the items that come into the transfer station, we need to pay to have them removed. Bisboro, landfill, we bring it there, it stays in the landfill, they don't have to get rid of it. I'm not sure if the cost comparison would be like something that we could go off of, because we have additional trucking costs to get it out of here. Just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Mayor Kukalka.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I appreciate those comments in regards to the trucking fee and trying to use the scenario what they charge down there and stuff. And I get it. I think so, at some point we got to realize as council there is going to be an expense to this, and I think that's the trucking. I'm being honest. Like I don't want to see this going out to the bush and stuff like that, and having our volunteers and those kind of organizations going out there and having to pick up shingles and all, and I've been part of it. I've seen it up at the racetrack, the old racetrack or whatever they call it, up the top there. And I mean, it was dump truck after dump truck. Like, it was a whole day up there, and it was with people's, we had the town loader up there, we had town staff up there, we had people's bobcats up there. It was dump truck after dump truck leaving that. And it's not a huge place. But to see shingles going out into our backcountry, we're in UNESCO Global Geopark. We're all about the hiking trails, the pristineness of this area. And I think we need, as council, make sure we do our best to mitigate that happening. Now, I can't control people whether they decide to come from another community, if it's happening, and taking them out and dumping them there, or if it decides to be local residents. I guess my question back to staff would be, I was unaware about no building permit needed to do shingles, because I was forced to buy a building permit. So that's, I had a stop work order put on my house because I didn't have a permit to do my roofing. And Councillor Klickash, you mentioned that it was under demolition. So I'm just curious, is that how the town used to do it then, and we've stopped doing it that way? I guess I'd just be curious on that.
Absolutely. Is there somebody on staff that would be able to answer that today?
Chief Curry, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Through Mr. Woodward.
Thank you, Steph. Yes, thank you, Steph. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff would like to respond to that, and
Chief Curry.
okay. Mr. Curry would like to speak to that.
Mayor and Council, so to the mayor's question, when the Peace River Regional, when the District of Tumbleridge entered into an agreement with Peace River Regional District for their building inspecting services, an audit was done of the building and plumbing bylaw, and nowhere could it be found that a permit was actually required for instances where facades or non-structural changes were required. So at that time, this was at the recommendation of the inspector to say, if there's no structural requirement, the building code does not apply without a structural change. The codes themselves don't cover the how to build a fence, for example. If nothing's changing structurally, the snow loads would be the same. Whatever product that you're putting there, would it be tin, as long as it's satisfactory, is still the same. So a building permit is not required for non-structural things. If you're changing windows with the same size window, that's the same. If you're changing your siding, no permit is required, non-structural changes.
Thank you, Chief. All right, Mayor Kukalka.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank staff for that, because that's obviously changed. And I mean, obviously, I'm not sure how many residents are aware of that. But maybe lots, because they're not buying permits no more, or having permits in their windows and stuff. And I guess that's good knowledge to have. To me, that makes this debate a little tougher for council. Not having that avenue that I thought we may have could have expedited this concept I had in my head. But with not having that, I think that actually changes this debate a little bit more. In the report from staff, it was approximately 13 homes that cost us $5,086.80 to remove. I'm assuming that was over last summer. Because again, I am not in favor of not having the transfer station receive shingles until we can figure this out. I have a huge concern that I know where they're going to end up. And it's not going to be to a proper location, or some will be. I think people have enough people recognize enough of the pristine country we live in and area, but there will be some of them that may not, and that's a concern to me, that they may end up in our backcountry for tourism and visitors to go see, or to have a non-for-profit group and volunteers having to go and remove them. So I'd like to hear what council has to say, because
And you will, but let's first have our CAO respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What's that? Okay. Yeah, Mr. Curry would like to speak again on that.
Mayor and Council, so just to give a little bit of oversight of what staff's plan is to move forward with trying to correct this, because staff is of the same opinion that council is that we need to move forward with some type of a cost recovery when it comes to shingles. But it's not just with shingles. It's scrap steel, vehicles. We're talking a larger scale issue down at the transfer station. The building and plumbing bylaw is one of the last bylaws that still has the permitting fees left in it. So they haven't been migrated over to the fees and charges bylaw. That bylaw would need to be amended so that we have a clear, concise way to have fees and charges. So that's one amendment. There's also some language cleanup that would have to be done at the same time with that in order to try and streamline it. The fees and charges bylaw obviously would be amended to reflect the changes in fee structure. The solid waste bylaw would provide all of the language around disposal down at the transfer station. So things like shingles, is it going to be on a permit fee basis? So when we looked in the report, we talked about 13 homes, roughly with a cost of $400 per home. So we look at a fee structure. We're going to give that to council's approval, or for council's purview when we do this amendment. So it could be $400, it could be $500, whatever we're looking at, but it's going to be based on your typical single-family dwelling in order to try and capture that. Is it going to fit for everybody? No. Is it going to be, you're going to have some that are going to be smaller square footage homes, some are going to be larger, right? That's up for council's debate to see where you all want to go with that fee structure in a permitting process. The same thing will come with things like vehicles down at the transfer station. What's that cost going to be? In it, we also would like to have the language in there for these user groups that are bringing things in like shingles and cars that have taken out of the bush, so that they're not being penalized the same way, that we're still accepting those things on behalf of those individuals, because we understand their time, the energy, the manpower, the cost that they're incurring already by going into the bush and bringing it in. Just for council's consideration, the local contractor who's been doing a lot of the steel roofs in town has contacted the district, and he already has 25 homes scheduled to be replaced from shingles to steel roof this build season. So when we're talking about that in terms of moving 1 or 2 homes by loader and moving things around in multiple areas, that's really what we're afraid of, is now we're gonna have to move 25 or potentially 25 homes with all of those shingles and have to jockey that equipment multiple times in order to facilitate all of the works that's gonna be happening at the transfer station this summer.
Thank you, Chief. All right, CAO Woodward. Oh, wrong one. There you go.
I believe that we can do an amendment bylaw and bring it back to council in a very, very short time so that we can facilitate the recommendations that's coming forward. And if we can do that amendment bylaw, then I believe that it can cover the costs of at least facilitating all of these shingles.
Okay, so just for my understanding, this amendment bylaw that you're talking about, is this a temporary, or are we talking about redoing whatever needs to be done in the bylaws all at once?
No, the amendment bylaw would just be to address
So a temporary change for
the recommendations that Chief just brought forward, and just for those specific things.
Okay.
At a later date, we can change the bylaw to the whole thing. But if we just put through an amendment to it, then it'll facilitate our immediate needs.
And that was going to be my comment or question after we go through this, of whether we could do something temporary. So thank you very much for that. And next is Councillor Klikash.
Yes, bylaw 600 was designed for this community, and there's a lot of things in there that aren't in the building code. And the reason they're not in there, in one of the things is snow load and wind loads. And it's not in the building code for Tumbler Ridge. It is for Fort St. John, different other areas, Dawson Creek, but they left out Tumbler Ridge. So that had to come from Ottawa. So there are things in there that MIA has approved, the bylaw, for insurance purposes and so forth. And they went right through the bylaw and gave suggestions to it because it's supposed to meet all the requirements of the building code. Eh? But then there's other items in there that were required for the town. So that there was no other bylaw to put it in but the building bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Julik.
Right, I have a few questions just so I can make sure I'm clear on all of this. So I'm looking for clarification. Currently, right now, staff's preference would be to not accept shingles until they get the area cleaned up down at the transfer station?
As I read it, CEO Woodward, I believe one of your staff would like to answer that.
Yes, they're still discussing it, so without me introducing each time, I believe that they can just go ahead and speak to this matter, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Recognized.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We do have an above-ground storage across from the lagoon, as we're all aware. We can set up a temporary staging area. Preferably, I would like to have kept it down at the transfer station, but we do have a bunch of work that's going on there this year. For us to remove the shingles from either the transfer station or the above-ground storage, I'll be reliant on contractors to do the work for us with, the use of our equipment. So staging it over in the above-ground storage area until we can figure out how to properly do this, we can make that work.
Okay, so, I guess that gives me a little, I guess I'd want some more time to because it sounds like there's a lot more logistics to this for us to consider keeping them, even receiving them this summer. And I guess what I'm looking for possibly then is that we maybe need to look at more than just shingles, for the transfer station, and maybe I'm not the best person to ask about it tonight because I have a few questions and I'll be getting a little bit of these. So right now I just feel like it sounds like it's going to be an even bigger cost. So if people want to store them or if they want to dump them here, so maybe we do a flat fee or something. I don't know, but yeah, I think if we're going to accept them, we definitely have to do something. I can't see putting it on the taxpayers. Because especially if there's 25 houses, that's a little, that's a lot of houses. But it's a little scary to think they've got to bring a contractor in to do the dumping. So I'm really at a loss. I'll be honest, I don't know.
To answer that, they already are using contracted trucking for that sort of thing. So it's not that they have to find another contractor. They've been using contract trucking for the shingles as contract trucking fee $22.68. Oh, sorry.
And maybe I misunderstood Mr. Bradley, but even if we have it in the above ground storage, we're going to have contractors go over there to dump trucks. We're going to have more contractors working on the shingles. Yes? Did I misunderstand?
Through CAO to Public Works.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yes, the way that the contractor bin was originally supposed to be set up, it was to be able to take shingles in small amounts. That did not happen. The weight of the shingles was making it impossible to fill the bin. So then we were having to either stockpile the bulky waste, the contractor waste to the side so they can get rid of the bin, or we built a laydown area for just shingles so that they weren't backing up and dumping directly into the bin. Regardless, at the end of it, we did try to use our equipment. We had a major breakdown while doing that. Plus we had to remove some auxiliary equipment on that truck. So we ended up using contractors to get it out because they can haul more weight. That's a big thing for us to make it the value the best we could for the district. That was the best way that we saw fit.
So, yeah, I did understand Mr. Bradley correctly then. So to me, we have even added cost to what is shown here, because this cost is only for the tipping fees and the trucking fees. So on top of that, we'll have contractor fees to move the shingles around until we get it set up how Public Works would like to have it set up down at the landfill station.
Thank you, Councillor. Next is Councillor Noxana.
I strongly feel that either the District of Tumbler Ridge can use taxpayer money to deal with shingles, which is not ideal, or we put it on the backs of volunteers in our community, because that is what's being done right now. Because the transfer station is unable to take them, they're going somewhere. For the most part, I would hope that they're going to the proper disposal place, but in practice, we know that's not always true. And we have great volunteers, and they're tired. So we need to be able to do something to mitigate that.
Was that a response directly to that, Councillor Julich?
Yes, please. And I would agree with Councillor Noxana. I also believe, though, that some of the reason we have stuff going out into the bush is because we are closed on Sundays and Mondays. I feel like that is another reason. We have a lot of folks who have Sundays off. That's when they want to take their stuff to the transfer station, and they're closed. So I believe that that is also a concern. I'm not disagreeing that the cost is going to have that happen as well, but I think we have more than just one reason why things go out into the bush.
Thank you. Mayor Kukalka.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to hear from Mr. Bradley, or from staff, if I may. I just seen that they were trying to answer you there.
Mr. Bradley?
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. I just want to make a comment here based on what's happened recently with tires in the woods. We still accept tires, they still end up in the woods. We still accept appliances, they still end up in the woods. The shingles are just a part of that equation. The people that dump into the woods, that's ignorance, and they're going to do that. You can't stop ignorance. I know that we can delay it by accepting it, but we haven't changed anything to limit people from taking any of these other items down to the transfer station. So those are still ending up in the woods. We had a discussion before about automobiles. They still end up in the woods. So these things are still accepted at the transfer station. The shingles were just overwhelming, and there's an expense that goes with it. So.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Mayor Kukalka, do you have something else?
Thank you, Chair. And I appreciate the comments from staff. And I know, Councillor Julich, you were just asking about other things they were talking about. They were talking about the vehicles and all of it. So there is a bigger window there that I think we're going to get more information on. I guess my question back to staff before I put a motion on the floor. What would be the repercussions of trying to take a fee at this time through town? Is there any availability to, I understand that town hall is Monday to Friday, transfer station is Tuesday to Sunday, Saturday, my bad. Just curious, and I have a motion I have written here, because I am, again, I understand from staff side, I understand their comments, I understand the dialogue of it and the reasoning of it. Again, I think I need to, I'm looking at what's the best for me, for our residents. And I understand that some of it's not always by our residents, it's from out-of-towners, but I'm prepared. I'd be just curious about that money amount before I put it out there.
Mr. Bradley, through CAO. Okay.
Chair and Council, so taking a fee possesses its own little bit of logistics. Whether that's taking it through town hall, is that coming up with a point of sale system down at the transfer station? I think if that is council's wish, we would accept a resolution to look into this matter further, and then come back with a more comprehensive plan on what options there could be. I still think that there would have to be something as an amendment to the fees and charges bylaw and the building and plumbing bylaw in order for us to facilitate that fee. Because right now we don't have the actual fee. If we were going to set it, and on what basis would we set the fee? On just a straight flat fee? We don't have the ability to set it by tonnage. So I think these are all really good points that I think we could dive into a little bit deeper and come back to council with.
I appreciate that, Chief, but if we're doing a temporary measure and we were saying if not to take Mayor Krakowska's thunder, if we were saying that would 500 be sufficient, or would 600 be just sufficient in the short term to get something going? Would that be helpful to staff, or do you need time for all of it? So what sort of motion would help you most today?
I think, Chair, at this point, if we set any value to it, and then we look at changing it, we're going to have a bit of an issue. Because if we set a $500 limit, a $600 limit, whatever council decides to, and then we come back and say, well, actually, it only cost us $320, right? What's the fallout going to be that? And that's ultimately your decision to set that price point. It's our job to make it happen and execute your wishes. So I think we could get a lot closer in terms of a number for you.
Okay.
But if this is something that council feels this passionate about, I'll leave it up to you.
Thank you, Chief. Mayor Krakowka.
Yep. That the district receive shingles and store them at the above-ground storage area. Also, that the resident that is discarding the shingles needs to have a tax bill with a TR address or have a government-issued ID with TR address. No fee.
There's a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dussault. Any discussion on the motion on the floor? And I see that there is. Councillor Julick.
I'm just going to clarify that's for this summer is what you're looking for, Mayor Krakowska?
Oh, sorry, Mayor Krakowka.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could amend it, put an amendment out there that it's until staff can come forward. But again, I mean, and I think that should be amended. If you're willing to make that amendment, I'd second it or whatever. But I agree, it should be just short term until staff figures it out. But again, I want to try and do that preventative for that shingles do not. And I understand some are still going to end up out there, but at this point, we can try to do our best.
Chair.
Yes.
Apologies for the interruption. There's just one glaring kind of thing that I would like to bring to council's attention. I did mention that we do have contractors that are coming to town and they're going to be doing 25 homes within the build season. At that point, that individual would not be permitted under the current motion to drop off any of their shingles. If that's council's intention, then that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that council was aware that that is not the case. You're talking about individual people, not necessarily a contractor.
Thank you, Chief. Mayor Krakowka, would you like to amend your motion?
Yeah, no, I made that motion for that regard. I do have a second motion coming forward as staff recommended that we didn't put fees not knowing the amount. I had amounts, so I have a second motion coming after this.
Okay. Councillor Julick.
If I could do a friendly amendment to Mayor Krakowska's motion to state that it is a temporary action until staff has time to come back to council with a recommendation.
Seconder on the amendment. Thank you, Mayor Krakowka. Any further discussion on the amendment of the motion? Discussion on the amendment. All right, all in favor? All opposed? And carried. All right. Staff, do you need further clarity on the amendment, or do you have it?
I think we have the amendment.
Okay.
Need the main motion.
Okay.
Reread.
So discussion on the amended motion. All right. Vote on the amended motion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Mayor Krakowka.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I'll put another motion on the floor that we ask staff to bring a report or recommendations forward in regards to charges and services to discard shingles at the transfer station.
Seconder on the motion. Councillor Julick. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Julick.
So just some clarification from Mayor Krakowka. So further to Chief Curry's concern about the fee, so would we still, until we get the recommendation back from staff on the fee, you're thinking that contractors would not be allowed to drop off their shingles? Is that how we're asking staff to proceed until we get that information?
Mayor Krakowka.
Yeah, so my thought is we have lots of locals that do their own roofs, I understand it. And we also have contracts that'll come into the community and do a ton of roofs or other other renovations on people's homes, and I think they can reach out to staff. You know, I think staff can bring that back forward in a timely fashion if they have a contractor that they've been in discussions with that's 25 homes. Pretty sure that we can find out the fee to discard shingles at a fairly quick rate. I mean, I know myself, I made a couple phone calls this morning, and I understand what the fee is. Well, sure, I have to haul it there still. I didn't include that fee, but I took the measurements of my roof and pretty much know the weight of how many shingles I'm going to have and how much it's going to be disposed of. They pretty much gave me an approximate amount. So,
Councillor Julik.
So I guess my concern with that is, so what I'm understanding, if we are going to make a charge, then we have to make an amendment to a bylaw. So then that's 3 readings and all of that stuff. So what I'm understanding, if today we were to vote in favor of this motion, we still would not be allowing anybody besides residents with a tax or a driver's license, a tax receipt or a driver's license to dump. I'm just looking to make sure I'm correct in that.
Mayor Kukuka, your response.
yeah, so I think staff may be able to answer more of it, but my thing is, yeah, staff would recommend that we don't just throw a number out there. That's why I previously asked, so that we didn't get into, I'll be honest, doing staff's job, telling them that that's what we're charging, and then they come back and tell us, no, that was a little low, we should have been in this amount. I'd rather have that opportunity for staff to do that part of the legwork and come back with a fee that they think is equivalent without using scales. A flat rate fee or whatever, and I understand that, you know, staff has already brought it forward. There's a contract rule. I'm sure we can reach out to the titled contractor and staff can bring forward. This is what I mean, it obviously hasn't started. I don't know what the time frame for this would be to be brought back, but it sounded from the CAO and staff that it could be, they're already working on some of this, so they already might have some of that information. I'm just trying to do it so staff can move forward with it and in a timely fashion.
So my question then would be through to staff, what kind of a timeline are we looking for? I'd like to have that before I make a vote.
Chair and council, so to do an amendment bylaw, at this point, we're probably into, with the limited meetings that we're going to have for June and July and August, we would be pushing ourselves right now to get something in for the June meeting. But that being said, we can still be working on it, and council can call a special meeting at any time in order to try and facilitate this change in a more timely manner. Further to Mayor Kukuka's comment, we are working on this already. We've anticipated some of the questions that you all have asked tonight, and we've already started making things, some ideas for council's consideration into that. So I don't think it's going to be that long and drawn out. So I hope that answers your question.
All right, any further discussion? Could I get the motion read back, please?
Sure.
That staff bring back a recommendation for charges and services to discard shingles at the transfer station.
All right, all in favor? Carried. I don't know if it's the appropriate time, but at some point, I think I need to bring a motion for, is there a possible way to monitor the dumping sites that are generally used? I know technology is a whole lot better than it used to be for that sort of stuff, but I think we need to motivate people to not do that anymore, and telling them that we're monitoring might just do something about that, but I'll prepare a motion for a future meeting for that. All right. Where are we? Okay, we're up to the zoning bylaw workshop. Are we ready to go with that? Brittany, can you hear us?
Yep, yes, I can hear you. Yep.
It sounds like there's two of you there, so I take that that's Cheng and Brittany. That is both on the same channel?
We're on separate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then it's just our monitors here. Great.
Oh, okay.
I will let you take it away.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if you can see it.
I can see it, Jen.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm just going to turn off my camera. Just keep the bandwidth. Okay, good evening, councilors. Sorry, good evening. I believe this is not a council meeting, but it will be a committee meeting. Yeah. Good evening, committee members. So we are going to continue our review. Say last time we have it in February, I'm assuming. Now just continue with the chart. And I believe that Eileen sent you the chart we have. Sorry, it's in the draft format. It's just because we add the our notes to it last time, so it's not really a formal copy. But it will be good to provide the information to you that what you can see there, what we discussed the last time. So now we starting from number 14. But before that, do you wanna? Do you have any comments on the other 13 that we talked about last time? The topics?
I'll open up to council. Is there any discussion for the previous 13 points or number 13, 1 through 13 that we discussed in the last meeting? There are no questions if you would like to continue with number 14.
Okay, thank you. Okay, number 14. We talk about make sure the lot size requirements for RM1 and RM2. Basically, it's a multifamily 2 zoning to reflect the 60 unit per hectare density requirements in the OCP. So here's the OCP policy here. So number 13. Direct the medium density urban residential development to a maximum of 60 units per hectare in the areas designated multifamily residential on Schedule B. So basically in our zoning bylaw, this is just our RM1 and RM2. I'm just going to bring up this. This is more like a statistics for a summary of our zoning bylaw for the requirements. So for our RM1, which is the low density residential multifamily, it says the maximum density is 40 and minimum is 30 unit per hectare. And for RM2 is 60 unit per hectare and 40 unit per hectare. So that's a maximum and minimum. However, this is, they call it residential multifamily high density level. So when we look at this and the OCP policies there, so that basically we are, Brittany and I, we discussed about it. There's really not a real high density in Chumber Ridge. Our suggestion is maybe we want to amend this high density to medium density.
So if I'm understanding, you're suggesting that the RM1 and R2 have a different number than the 60 unit per hectare that it's currently zoned for?
That's right.
Do you have a recommendation?
We do have the recommendation, just really a simple one, because we're supposed to provide a different density requirement in our multifamily. So the current bylaw says low density and high density. So low density is RM1 and high density is RM2. So our suggestion is to revise the name, the formal name for this RM2 from high density to medium density.
And what would be the per hectare number of units for that?
The maximum is 60 unit per hectare and minimum is 40.
Okay.
So it would remain the same as what RM2 has currently. We're just suggesting it be changed from high density residential to medium density residential. Just a name change simply.
Okay, are we on each item here, are we going to vote for any changes, or are we going to do it as a group at the end here? What's typical? Mayor Kukalka?
If you want to make changes to what they're doing, we may put a motion
Okay, so each item will do any motions that we want to do. Is
only if we want to change what the recommendation is.
Oh, only changes in recommendation, okay. Is there any discussion on the recommended change? No? All right, I guess we can say we accept the recommended change.
Thank you. Let's go to the number 15. Make sure the lot size requirements of rural residential zone, including R3 and R4, to reflect the 2.5 unit per hectare density requirements. So currently, I believe in the current zone, R3 and R4, there's no density requirements there. So according to the OCP policy there, we recommended to add 2.5 unit per hectare as the maximum to.
So 2.5 is maximum, all right?
To R3 and R4. Let me double check. I think it's the maximum.
It's quite difficult to see when you're skimming through. So if you could give us where you're at on a given page number.
Okay,
I
here.
believe we were on page 17 of the zoning bylaw update key recommendations report, just to get everybody on the same page here. But just so you know, it's we wouldn't, well, at least my eyes aren't anywhere near close enough to read what's up on the screen.
I believe there should be a chart, a separate chart just about this list without just not looking at the key recommendation report, because this is basically the question we summarized it from the key recommendation report and we kind of wrap it up as our question list. If you have a separate chart showing all these questions, I believe you do.
We do. We do have the item that is on the right is sort of what I'm taking notes on and going by as the individual numbers. I just want you to know that the left is impossible to read for us. So if you can give us a page number and what you're at, if you need us to reference it. For example, we have the zone R1, R2, R3 is where I went for page 17. That's, I just want you to know that we cannot read and follow on the left.
Okay. I probably have to bring up the key recommendation report to reference that. Just bear that with me.
Are they doing a reference on the subdivision service?
I'm sorry, it's on our SharePoint site.
No, that's all right. Well, take your time. I'm trying to convert from acres to hectares to feet to meters and everything else as we go along. So while you're doing that, Mayor Kirkauka.
Yeah, I just want to know what it is in acres instead of hectares.
That would be approximately 1 acre, 1 unit per acre.
That's what I thought.
So while you're doing that, a few rough things that I did that may or may not help council. There are approximately 2.5 acres per hectare. My conversions for feet to meters, every 100 meters squared is about 1,100 square feet. It's actually 1076, but rough estimates. I know that number is going to be useful later on.
All I'm saying is they should be talking to us in acres instead of hectares. We're not looking at big land policies here. We're residential and rural properties.
I honestly think
I
think we should be noting both in whatever we're finishing up with here, but definitely more common to use square feet and acreage.
Okay, so this is
Councilor
not a problem. I'll do the best to accommodate that.
So I think what I have found is if we look at the December 14th zoning bylaw update key recommendations report draft, if you look at, so I'm on page 5 and 15, number 15, if you look, 5.1.24 is what we're being told, like, so that's the policy shows on the left, and the implementation is on the right. So if that gives council a little bit more information. It doesn't follow exactly, but if you quickly scan for incorporate agricultural uses, that's 5.1.32. So I think that information is there, because I think the information they have up there is actually the OCP possibly. Oh no, I see she's scrolling down. But yeah, so I'm looking at page 5 and then I'm corresponding the other paperwork to that.
Yeah, it's a summary. So the chart we have is the summary of this one. So the pages, probably the number will be a little bit off.
Yeah, all the column in the summary chart in the key recommendations report, the column on the left side, those are all policies that were pulled from the OCP.
That's right.
And then we have to implement them with the zoning bylaw.
Okay.
So whether we look at this key recommendations report, summary chart, or we're looking at the OCP, it's they're kind of one and the same.
So maybe a way is, yeah, they're not that much. It will take time. Let me build up this way. Is that better?
Yeah, I think the page on the right side, Chen, people could see that. It's just the left document that's hard to see.
This one. Oh, okay.
Yes, where your cursor is now,
so
we are able to follow along relatively easily compared to the other side.
So, oh yeah, this is the one we're talking about. Let's see if I can manage it to the, is this better? We're talking about this one.
So when you're talking about that side, if you could tell us the page number that you're on and the item number, then we can follow along with the printed, we have the printed version for both.
So the OCP is 34, page 34.
Oh, not the OCP. We have the, I'm sorry, wasn't clear. We have the key recommendations report, December 14th, 2022. We don't have the OCP in front of us.
Okay. I believe this chart not exactly following the key recommendation. That's a summary, so it's a bit. Let me see what I can do here. I believe it's the chart.
Yeah, page 5.
Page 5, yeah, it's the chart.
So we're on 5.1.24.
Yeah, we have to go this way.
Okay, yes.
5.1.24.
There we go. Yep.
If
Oh,
you
yeah.
give one to the other side of council, then that might at least give them a reference.
Okay, yeah, page 5, 5.1.24. I will move it to another room, so I just reference it. We'll see it when we get there. Okay, so this is the OCP requirements there. 2.5 unit per hectare. Yes, you are correct. It's 1 unit per acre. Make sure. So basically, what we current bylaw did not really put any density requirements there. So this is our recommendation. Is the I believe is a minimum. Give me a side here. Direct this to maximum. Yes, maximum. I'm sorry. So we will put that into the. So that's based on this OCP requirement. Our recommendation is to put this density requirement as the maximum requirement. For I believe is for the small lot, because the larger lot will be definitely lower than that.
So just for clarity, the recommendation is that the smallest lot size would be 1 acre. You can have 1 or 2.5 acre or 4 acre lots, but you cannot have smaller than 1 acre.
Yes.
Okay.
Minimum density.
Yes, okay. No, maximum density. The maximum is having 2.5 people within that hectare, or not people, but units within that hectare, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Minimum lot size will be 1 acre.
Sorry, I was just trying to clear it up for what we probably use more in the vernacular day-to-day as lot size, so.
Okay.
All right, so is there any comments on the minimum lot size of 1 acre for number 15? Councilors, we're all good with that? Mayor Krakauka.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And this is just in regards to residential, right?
R3.
That's correct.
Okay.
The rural residential.
Yeah.
The small lot,
So this is rural residential or residential?
rural residential, not urban, it's rural.
Okay, so I'll be honest with you, I'm not in favor of smaller lots than 5 acres. I've had this conversation previously. I'll speak about it again. Going through this previously, if it's under 5 acres, we have to supply water and sewer. Anything under 5 acres, as per what we learned in regards to when we first went through the process of rural properties. So that is a huge expense, and I think this council needs to be aware of that. That when we first went through this and had the group come in and come in person to council, that was the first thing that was stated to us, that 5 acres or less, we supply city water and sewer. Over 5 acres, we don't have that concern. So if, to me, when we start looking outside, you know, right now I believe the Saddle Club is one of the areas that has been zoned or will be for the rural. That is a long ways to run water from the treatment, and it's long, well, I don't think it's long ways to our lagoon, but that is, this council needs to be aware of that, because that is an expense that it may be able to be offset to your property, but the initial expense to the district.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Julick.
So I don't know if at this point then we need to make a motion, because I'm absolutely on the same page as Mayor Krakauka. I'm not in favor of us running sewer and water to those lots.
Councillor Noxana.
Just to clarify, we have to provide sewer and water, or they cannot drill a well and lay a septic field? Like, is there a pump in, pump out system they would have to have, or we then are responsible for?
Mayor Krakauka, if you can answer that.
Yeah, I mean, unless staff has more information than I received previously, and that's why we were against this, or I shouldn't say we, I was against the smaller lots, was because we would have to provide it. So we would have to run off the city water and off our lagoons, not a septic tank or drill your own well. It was, we would have to provide that for the smaller acres. I can't remember the organization that came in, but that was the first thing they said to us when we started looking into rural residential, was anything under the 5 acre lot meant we were, whether there's a rule or a bylaw through the government or the association, that we would have to supply water and sewer. Now, I believe that expense would go on to the person that buys the property. So yes, do you get your money back? I think you do, but that's really never been 100% said to us. And the concern there is when you buy land and you start subdividing it under 5 acre lots, those lots become so expensive nobody can afford to buy. I mean, you might as well go buy one from the other PRD region with a house, is my understanding. Unless staff has different information, but I know this was one of the things I sat on and worked on, and that was our concern right from the start, was these small little acreages. I know staff did the open house and stuff like that, and there were some residents that, oh yeah, they would love 1 acre lots or 1.5 or 2, but that was a concern from some of the council and myself, was, again, the cost of water and sewer.
Thank you, Mayor. Recognize the CAO. Okay, when you press it, I gotta give it to you. So you press it once. If you press it when it's red, you can't talk anymore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mayor brings up a really valid point here. It's an exceptional point, because we're addressing we're trying to address a subdivision servicing bylaw, which is an associate bylaw to an official community plan. So it's a very important element that council in after reviewing this, that they review the subdivision servicing bylaw, because it's an affiliate or an associate bylaw. And sometimes those subdivision servicing bylaws don't get looked at, the OCP does, and then it's left out. And there's a critical factor that comes with subdivision servicing bylaw, is that once you pass one, after you've done all your work and you pass one, it takes a year for it to become valid. And so that's an exceptionally an exceptional point that council needs to consider in the immediate near future. Thank you.
Thank you. Somebody want to make a motion, or should I?
Sorry, can I interrupt?
Absolutely.
Just want to raise my hand. That piece of information is very helpful because when you look at the current zoning bylaw here, there's no R3 zone on this plan, on this map in the zoning bylaw. So that recommendation, it makes sense that we don't have R3. Even we had that in the list, but doesn't mean we designate anything into R3. Maybe one of the recommendation or consideration is to remove that zone.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Noxana.
I would recommend that our smallest rural residential lot would be 5 acres then to accommodate for this need.
Greater than 5 acres?
Greater than 5 acres is what I'm going for, yeah.
Is that a motion?
It's a motion.
Okay. Would you like to repeat it as a motion, please?
I would like to motion that our smallest rural residential lot allowable would be 5 acres.
Greater.
Or greater.
Not or. Sorry.
5 acres or greater.
No, 5 acres is the line. We want, as I understand it, greater than 5 acres. I'm sorry, if that's the motion you want to do, I'm not going to say you can't do that, but.
5 acres or bigger.
Okay, can I get a clarification on that?
You could have 6 acres, you can have 25 acres if you would like to buy that land, but the smallest we're allowing is 5 acres.
Okay, what I would like clarified is if 5 acres is the line or if it's inclusive. Why I'm saying that is if we have a 5 or 4.9999, there's no problem. 5.0, do we still have to run? Or is it 5.01 where we don't? So if, Mayor Krakowka, I'm hoping you can clear that up since you were talking about it, but we don't know. Okay. Okay, that's going to be interesting. All right, can I have a seconder on the motion?
Before you second that, I don't think, go ahead, second.
No, that's learning here. Go ahead. What did you want to say?
I just think, like, let's get some information back from staff. When we second something like that, and then we debate it and pass it, and then we have to bring it back. So I'll be honest with the map you just showed. That's not, like, again, this is new. This is even new to staff in regards to this rule. Yes, we talked about it. Yes, we did that. But the land's just been purchased. So it's something new. But I'd like to hear from staff on that 5 acre because I don't want to me, that's the staff's kitchen, and to make sure they have that right information when it comes to that, Chair. And I don't want to answer that. I think staff needs to make sure that that is the clarity. There was staff that partaked in those meetings. Because to me, is it 4.999 or is it 5.01?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Noxana, would you be willing to defer that question until, thank you. Councillor Julik.
I think I heard our folks on the Zoom say that she was saying that we don't currently have R3 and R4. So it's something completely new if we were to continue on with it anyway. So I think the question here is, do we want R3 and R4 or not?
Mayor Krakowka.
Yeah, I guess that's up to council, but we did purchase land. Right, there is a process going through with staff, so if not, so be it. But I think we need to hear from staff in regards to this 4.99 or the 5, so that if we're going to put a motion on what the lot amount would be, we have it the right way.
Yeah, I would like to hear back from staff and the subdivision servicing bylaw, as well as Mr. Woodward talked about before we did anything here with number 15.
Thank you, Councillor Julik. And just my own comment is I'd like to see the flexibility that if we wanted to, we could. And if we're going through this process, then let's have it there. Staff, I guess to CAO, I just want to clarify if staff needs any more information or if we could just defer this and leave it in staff's hands.
You want to speak to that? Yes, we will. We don't need no, we have enough information.
Okay, thank you. So I guess we're done with 15 and let's move on to 16.
We scratched 16. Corporate. I believe this is because we do have the policy and the zoning bylaw does not need to be changed because we it's already part of the permitted use, so there's no way, we don't need to discuss 16.
Okay.
Now,
Hold on, if Mayor Kukalka has something to say about 16. Mayor Kukalka.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear staff's response. We had a motion on the floor. It was not seconded, which is fine, but it doesn't mean that that motion can't come back on the floor. I just curious on if we have that information from staff in regards to the acreage size, and if it was the 4.999 or if it had to be the 5.001 for that to be put into this, because if we're going to move this process forward, is the idea we're here at a workshop, I don't want to keep leaving things out to come back. Unless we don't have the information, we have to wait for it, I'm fine with that. But if staff has that information, I'm prepared to put a motion on the floor or have another counselor so we can move forward with number 15. Because to me, right now, we're removing it. We're not going ahead with R3, R4.
Fair enough. I guess I'll put it to our experts. Do we know if the line is inclusive of or not inclusive of 5 acres for needing a sewage and water being brought to the city to the from the city to the property?
Can you speak to it or you want to speak to it? No, you don't speak to it. Okay, thank you. I have always heard it referred to as 5 acres. It was never been 4.999 or 5.01, so it's always been 5. The number 5.
Yes, and the question is if that's inclusive or not. Is it up to and including 5 acres, or is it over 5 acres is what I think the distinction we're having here. Because the last thing I want to do is be bitten by something like that. If we have 5 acre lots and somebody cuts out exactly 5 acres and tells us to run it to city now. So that's what my concern is. If we don't know, then...
I don't have that clarity at the moment, so...
Thank you. So, Mayor Kukalka, to my mind, we don't have clarity. Are we okay for deferring this, or is there anything more?
If we're deferring, I think the motion needs to be that it's deferred, looking for more information from staff, so it's clear on what we're waiting for.
Okay.
So I'll put the motion that we defer item 15 until staff has clarity.
Seconder on the motion. Councillor Julich, all in favor? Passed, or sorry, carried. All right. Sorry for the delay. On to 16, please. And as was just, sorry. So 16 was discussed. Any comment from council or changes from council? Residential or permitted uses are already incorporated, so this is not needed. Any issues? No issues. So you're fine to strike 16. Number 17, please.
Number 17 is establish bee and hen keeping permissions in residential zones with proper control. So currently in the zoning bylaw, we allowed hen keeping, no bee keeping, but we did the engagement, and then people seems quite supporting this bee keeping as well. So that's number 1. And number 2 is even we had a hen keeping as the permitted use, there's no controls, there's no rules around it. So our recommendation is to add rules about hen keeping, and also we recommend to add bee keeping as well, and also with the proper controls.
I think we're going to have a few people want to talk about this one. Councillor Noxana.
Could we include other small animals? So a couple turkeys, a couple ducks. I'm not sure what other small farm animals residents would want, but to include anything if hens are allowed, something similar.
I guess that will go to staff first. I think the question is if chicken equivalents, ducks, turkeys, other poultry, would that be under this bylaw, or would they be needed to add it specifically? And I guess the second part would be that is if a pygmy goat going to make it to a backyard, is that next? Okay. So as it's currently written, is it specifically chickens and no other no exceptions?
Currently, it just said hen keeping, and then that's it.
Okay. So I would say, Councillor Noxana, after this discussion, if you want to make a motion to add something, that might be a good time. And next is Mayor Kukalka.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So when you say there's no rules, would we be just taking the bylaws that we have in place in regards to hen keeping and adding them to this part as the rules?
The rules typically we will see how far away the structure for keeping the chicken, like the setbacks for it, and also how many chicken that can be kept, that types of rules.
Yeah, that's
So
in our
far,
bylaw.
In our bylaw, I don't believe there's any rules about that.
Staff can go with it, but it's in.
Okay. Councillor Julick. Oh, sorry. CAO.
Thank you, Council, Chair, and through the Council. Hen keeping is in our animal responsibility bylaw with all the permissions and criteria that is required. So that is already located in our animal responsibility bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Julick.
Before we added any other animals to that bylaw, I would want public hearing. Like, I mean, I think that bees, there might be reasons people don't want bees. I don't think that that's something that we should be adding necessarily right now. Same as goats. Some people don't like goats. There's been some confusion around chicken. Not that there's been some confusion, but there's people breaking the rules around our chicken bylaw. So if we were to start expanding on that, I just have some concerns, and I don't know that I would be making an informed decision deciding here tonight. I would be content to leave hens in here because we've already done that. It's already been proven. But to add anything else without some consideration, I'm not sure. But also, I also understand that Mayor Kakauka was here for the chicken discussion, so I'm content to hear what he has to say as well.
Mayor Kakauka.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the bees came up because it came up in the open house. That was something that came up in the open house when they were going through this process. But if you want to fill the chambers, talk about guns and hens. We were able to fill the whole gallery in here the one night. So I don't disagree with you when it comes to adding, ducks and turkeys. And I do have hens. Turkeys are very loud. Hens can be, but nothing compared to a turkey. Again, that's, I think, why we've decided to try and push forward in regards to rural property so people can have those little farming aspects, whether it's ducks, goats, turkeys. But the bees, the reason I brought that up is just to talk to Councillor Julick. The bees did come up and it was from the public. I'm not sure how many people put their hand up about bees, but the bee thing has come quite a bit in all the other areas around us, Dawes Creek, Fort St. John. Lots of talk about the beekeeping in regards to it. One, it helps your gardens, right? And the other thing is the shortage of bees. It was another idea, I think. So I think that's where it came from when the public had the open house. So this was already done in the open house, and it was a comment that came back from the residents of Tumbler Ridge.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Noxana.
I'm in favor of keeping bees, but I'm also in favor of keeping any small animal that isn't intrusive to your neighbors. So I understand about turkeys. They're loud. Ducks, not any louder than hens. But absolutely I'm in favor of keeping bees. I think that, yes, people don't like them. People don't like dogs. People don't like cats. People don't like a lot of things, but bees in your yard, especially a kept hive, is usually fairly non-aggressive, and it is a huge bonus to our community, our gardens.
Councillor Julick.
So I guess my question would be then, because you have a lot more knowledge than me about the bees, so if you had a kid that lived next door to somebody who wanted to have bees, would that be an issue? That would be because I absolutely hear you about the dogs and the cats, but they don't necessarily need an EpiPen if they get a little aggressive. So that would be my one question. Beyond that, I'm okay with keeping them in because I agree. I think it's okay. I'm just worried about the safety.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Noxana.
My father has kept bees before on the East Coast. If a child was to go push over a hive, would they get stung? Probably. If a child is anaphylactic to bee stings, maybe that's not what they should be doing with their time. If they live next door, they're no more likely to get stung by a bee than a wasp. The wasps are way more aggressive, and if anyone has an idea of how to get rid of them, great, let me know.
Also to answer your question, Councillor Julik, if you have a few feet from bees, you tend to be fine. If you don't disturb their nests, you literally can have them on your porch and have your door on one side and the bees on the other, and they will tend to leave you alone. Any other comments on number 17? Mayor Krupka.
Yeah, so I don't know if we need a motion. I'd like to hear from the delegation on Zoom, but when we have it under our animal control bylaws, I'm curious if we could just pull from there instead of rebuilding it, and or not. And if you need a direction from us to pull it from our animal control bylaws.
We would like to add, if that's the case, then we would like to add a reference in this zoning bylaw, refer to animal control bylaw number, blah, blah, like the number there. So people can actually refer that to look at it for the requirements.
And I guess, Chair, the only other thing I would mention is bees would need to be, have rules, and I believe our bylaw states this time that we do not allow bees or ducks or goats or cows.
Yeah, I'm not going to add cows anytime soon. So as I understand it, with the recommendation, if we leave it as it is, there's going to be a reference to our current chicken rules put in and an addition of beekeeping. I actually have a question for the rest of council. I don't know the chicken bylaws. How many are we allowing right now and that sort of thing? So if anybody does know, thank you, Mayor Kakauka.
You're allowed to have 8 hens, no roosters. Your chicken coop has to be certain dimensions, and it has to be the back of your property.
Okay, and any restrictions on size of particular hens, or is it just the number 8 as far as you know?
Pretty sure we don't describe on what size your hens are allowed to be, because you could buy a small hen and it grows into a big hen.
No, fair enough. I'm just talking about breeds and that.
Then I'm talking about the same thing. Like I have a lavender orp, we call it Tina. Please feel free to come over and see Tina.
Okay, I will come over and see Tina one of these days. Councillor Julik.
I also believe there's a recommendation in there. There's something that says you have to be a certain amount of feet away from your neighbor's fence. So, and I only know that because I had a friend who had a neighbor with a rooster. So I would like to make a motion to go ahead and do that, and with staff's expertise to decide where the beekeeping recommendations would go. If they would be in this new zoning bylaw, if we would be adding them to the current animal control bylaw.
I'm going to ask the first question part of that. Does staff require a motion for what was discussed to this point? As we don't have specific rules and we're just asking them to come up with them, that I don't know if they need a motion or not. No need? Okay. And last question to council, are we happy with the 8 chickens, or does somebody want to make a motion to change our current bylaws? Nope, nobody's, Mayor Kakauka.
I think that would have to be changed at a meeting, not in regards to a workshop.
Okay, fair enough.
And I'll be honest with you, I have chickens, and I know it went from 4 to 8, and I think honestly 8 is sufficient for the community if you do have backyard hens. So just be aware. That doesn't mean the council can't bring that up and debate it. But I do think, that was a good number that council brought forward and stuff. But just so you know, I think that would, just because we're in a workshop, I think that would have to be brought up as a notice motion or something.
Fair enough. All right, on to number 18, please.
Okay. Number 18 is incorporate the requirements of comprehensive site area plans into the future residential zone regulations. So what that means is, I'm showing the map that in the OCP map. So the yellow area, they are all future development. So they call it future residential future zone regulation. So for all this yellow area, we would like to recommend it to add the comprehensive site area plan, that requirements for this area. So once if people want to come and they want to develop this area into a residential, and they will need a comprehensive plan to do that. So what that comprehensive plan means is, it has to show the land use, the servicing strategy, the geotech report, the environmental assessment, and transportation impact assessment, that types of requirements. So far, the zoning bylaw has nothing talk about that, but if if someone come and say, I want to develop this area and what's the requirements, then we will have a section in the zoning bylaw that mention it to the applicant.
Okay.
So that's our recommendation.
Any questions, council? I have to admit, it sounds good to me. I assume that applies to even subdividing those lots, that if they were just taking a portion of as they're currently divided, that those rules would apply. And,
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, council going once. Oh, there we go. Mayor Kukalka.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to hear from staff. And the reason I ask that is, I mean, there's been some work done on it by staff in regards to some of these areas that are planned for future development and such. And I want to make sure this is meeting the criteria from the staff side. This is something that we would not deal with on a case by case. It would be staff that would deal with this. And I just want to make sure that that's within the realm that this meets what they've worked on before I just pass it without asking staff.
Thank you, Mayor.
Trace will speak to it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff wants to speak on it. Please go ahead.
Sure. Chair and Councillor Mayor. Thank you for that question. Yes, it would meet our criteria, and I think it would have probably been a given anyway. It's definitely not case by case. We would do a subdivision package and then send it out to developers to, I guess, quote on. So all of that information would have been absolutely included.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, looks like number 18 meets with approval. 19, please.
19 is about short-term rental. So review the short-term rental policy to create additional, more flexible regulations. So basically, we're talking about B&B in residential area and Airbnb in residential/commercial zones, no hostels. So there's a few points here. So basically, let's talk about B&B and Airbnb. So B&B is people, the owner actually live in the house and then rented out a couple bedrooms there. And Airbnb, that's like entirely the unit out, renting out and short-term rental. So we want to know your opinions regarding this supporting, because we have heard other communities complaining about Airbnb. But there's economic development will let you know that Airbnb is important to the community, especially more tourism-oriented place. So we want to know your opinion is where you want to see this Airbnb is, because traditionally B&B always in the residential zone they allowed. How about Airbnb?
Okay, you will get some opinions, I'm sure. Councillor Julich, we'll start with hers.
I have some real concerns around more flexibility. I've seen, as I've worked within the tourism industry, that Airbnbs and VRBOs increase rent for the locals, and it becomes a push-pull with residential people wanting tourism to grow or not. Am I happy to review the short-term rental policies? Yes. Am I looking for more flexibility? No. If I'm looking for anything, it will actually be more structure around that, is in my opinion. I've seen posters of communities that say tourists go home because the rent is people, homeowners choose to do an Airbnb rather than a regular rental.
Thank you, Councillor Julich. Mayor Kukalka.
Yeah, so a couple of comments. We already do the Airbnb, I don't know about the VRBOs, but in residential, I'm concerned commercial. And if I could just get information from staff, like when this came forward previously, it was residential-wise. To me, we're looking at trying to add it into commercial zones. Would there be a reason we'd want Airbnb or VRBOs in a commercial concept?
Not sure if that's a question for anybody in particular, but yeah. Okay. Questions directed to staff.
Thank you, Chair, Council. I don't recall hearing about this, but again, these recommendations came out of the public engagement, and so now we're bringing them back to Council, and if, we're going through them, and if you want to approve them, you may. If you want to not approve them, that's your prerogative as well.
Thank you, Steph. Is it directed to the statement at hand? No? Okay, Councillor Julik.
Yeah, so I would like to review them with our people that are on Zoom, our experts, to just look to see what that would look like. I could understand in the commercial zone that, some of those spaces maybe, don't get me wrong, I see where they're going with that, but I'm happy while we're working on the zoning bylaw to have it. The review part, I'm good with.
Thank you, Councillor Julik. Mayor Kukalka?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm not really in favor of reviewing it and everything else. I'm putting a motion on the floor to remove Airbnb/VRBO in commercial zones.
Seconder? Councillor Dussault. Discussion. Councillor Noxano.
Does this mean if someone wanted to rent out the Twilight Lodge on Airbnb, they wouldn't be allowed to do that right now? Or build cabins across the road here where there's woods? I believe that's all zoned commercial right now. And that would mean that they cannot rent that on Airbnb or VRBO.
Thank you, Councillor. Mayor Kukalka.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So to me, Twilight Lodge, I believe, is still listed under commercial, but it's a hotel capacity. So I think they have a hotel licensing or previously did where they've held it up. And I think the same thing when you look at building cabins in the woods, I'm not sure what you're talking about, but it would be the same concept. It'd be like a rental, so it'd be just like a hotel. My concern when we leave commercial zones on there, we have quite a few commercial zones, so my concern there would be seeing commercial buildings turned into Airbnbs or VBROs, and that could be easily done. So that's why I put the motion on the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Julik.
I just wonder what is the zoning for above where the Bottle Depot is and Northern Metallic. I believe they have rental units above them. Are they classified commercial and we aren't supposed to be talking about them in an open meeting?
Do you have something to say, Steph?
That, and above the Bottle Depot, that's zoned as C2, commercial 2.
And are they currently being used as Airbnbs? Is that what the question is?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Noxano.
My understanding is Airbnbs need to be licensed in Tumbler Ridge, even in a residential area. There's certain checks and balances that have to be in place to turn a residence into an Airbnb. Would we not have the same checks and balances in commercial areas? So yes, you can rent out your hotel on Airbnb, but you need a hotel license or whatever that is. So we're not saying, hey, do you want to spend the night in Fresh Mart on Airbnb? But like, it's still a commercial business. Somebody's making money doing this, whether it's a hotel setup or a house setup. They still need to go through district licensing to get the final approval.
Mayor Kukalka.
Yeah, I'd go to staff on that. I believe it's pretty easy to get a business license to do an Airbnb. Fairly simple process.
Thank you. I could speak, but I don't know if Mr. Curry could speak to it as well.
Oh, sorry. There you go.
Chair and council, so to the mayor's point, the procedure to get a business license, a short-term rental license, is an application is first off made, and then I come out on behalf of the municipality and I do a site inspection of the actual lot plan, and then I do a comprehensive fire inspection of the building to make sure that the life safety, provisions are all met, and then afterwards it's then given back to Mrs. Torville for approval. So there's a few little things that have to happen before. It's not just to come in, fill out your application. It is a bit of a process, including a site visit, et cetera.
Thank you, Chief. Councillor Juke.
At this point, I'm going to vote against Mayor Kakauka's motion simply because I think that if we're going to go ahead with a review anyways of the short-term rental policies for Airbnb in the residential zones, to have the review about the possibilities of commercial, I'm okay waiting to see what that looks like and then making the decision not to go forward with them afterwards. But because all of this is, well, how I'm understanding this is we're just going to review it and we're going to get back some information. And then I don't see the harm in looking at the commercial stuff as they're reviewing the other.
Thank you, Councillor. And I don't see anybody else requesting. I'm going to say something on this one. As far as the motion goes, I'm really not sure, to be honest. I don't have a good sense of what the balance needs to be, because right now, I don't want single-family homes to be put into Airbnbs anymore. We have a limited stock of that. We're not going to get any more anytime soon. And it's very tempting for somebody to turn a 4-bedroom house into a 4-unit Airbnb on a cost-benefit analysis for them as an individual. The commercial areas, I have even less of an idea of what I would want to see for that. Yes, of course, I want businesses to come in and have space and have reasonable rents and provide services for our community. So I don't think that helps with this right now, but I think we need to really think about where's the give and take and where do we want to allow for this. And do we want to just put a stop to it going forward with, we have people that have already done it, they've already set it up. I don't want to take that away from them. They've put in however many tens of thousands of dollars to do so, but discouraging others from doing so might just be something we need to do. So I am going to, Councillor Noxana. Maybe not, but final comments for now.
I just want to reiterate that number 19 does say, would we like to review and see if we would like additional or more flexible regulations. So review, do we want more regulations or less? Do we want more for commercial, residential? We're not saying, yes, we'd like Airbnbs everywhere, and we're not saying, no, we don't. We're saying we would like to look at it. That's exactly what number 19 says, in my understanding of review.
And I agree with your understanding, but right now there's a motion on the floor, and that's what I'm trying to speak to. So, is everybody clear with the motion, or would you like it read back? Okay, nobody's saying they want it read back. All in favor? Opposed? Defeated. Okay, so as I understand it, that leaves it as in a review process going forward. We're not going to say yes or no. Council or Mayor Kakauka.
Yeah, so
Oh, yeah, sure.
so I'd like to know who's doing the review process and the time on it.
Steph.
Staff will do.
I'm sorry?
Staff will do the review.
Okay, so it's in-house is going to be a review? Good to know, thank you. Any other questions, Mayor Kakauka? Oh, timeline, yes.
Timeline.
Thanks, Chair. The reason I asked for timeline, if it was this organization that was doing it, I mean, to me, it seems like we're trying to get through these zoning bylaw updates to get it out. So that's why I asked who was doing the review. I'm assuming when this first came forward, we didn't have Airbnbs. When this partaked as the open house, I'm thinking that Airbnb wasn't a thing in Tunbridge at that time. I could be wrong, but I don't think it was.
Just to your point, Mayor Kakauka, Airbnb is a platform that is used. It's a company that is used where people go and register to stay at a place. It's just like going and doing an online booking for a hotel room, right? We in our business license bylaw, we have it termed as short-term rentals, and so that could be the Airbnb type or whatever. And just for your, I don't know, just for your information, one of the hotels in town does have a couple of rooms designated as Airbnb. So you can go on to the Airbnb platform and reserve a room through that at their hotel. So it's a different kind of a setup there. So when this engagement took place, yes, we did have this type of short-term rental in town.
Thank you. Any further questions before we move on? All right, so an in-house review. Did we have a timeline available for the review process?
Not at the moment, but we will sit down and see what we can do.
All right, thank you, staff. Let us go to number 20, please.
Increase the maximum size and height of accessory buildings, potentially 5 meter, but garden suite and couch houses may require additional height. So just for your information here, accessory building, the height at this moment, R1, R2, they are 5 meter. And then in R3 and R4 is 12 meter. In RM1, residential multifamily, low density is 3 meter. And in multifamily, high density, RM2 is 5 meter. And then in the manufacturing home park, MHP is 3 meter. And then in the future development is 10 meter. And also highway commercial is 5 meter. So basically they are different in the current bylaw, the accessory building. So our recommendation is, can we unify this number and just give it 5 meter? And then for garden suite, the accessory suite, if it's approved for 2-story, like on top of a garage or a detached garage, then we will say 2-story, 12 meter allowed. That's the suggestion.
12 meters would put it at over almost 40 feet.
Yes.
It's well over 2 stories. Or with even the roof pitch, do we need that much room?
It can be 10 meter.
Okay. Okay, so taking all the Rs together, we're saying 5 meters for a single-story structure on the property and up to 10 meters on an approved coach or secondary garage space. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Noxena.
Is this big enough? If we have people allowed to have rural residential property, is 5 meters for an accessory building big enough to park a tractor in, or?
I worry about the pitch a little bit, to be honest, but 5 meters is almost, yeah, it's more than a story and a half, but it's not quite there for, you need about 3 meters a story just for floor structure, joists and everything, almost 10 feet. So I'm kind of wanting to push that.
Yeah, this would not be big enough, specifically for uses that we want, so rural residential.
Okay, Councillor Julik.
From what I understand what she said, future development has 10 meters, so that would take care of the tractor issue because we don't currently have any rural residential sites, so I think the 10 meters would be okay for that. My concern is that we leave R3 and R4 at 12. We change RM1, like I think standardize it to 5 beyond the 10 that they're recommending for the garden suites and coach houses, and then future development is 10. So I'm the highway commercial, I was kind of surprised that it's at 5 though, but I don't really know what highway commercial is and if we have anything coming that way. I would say that that should fall under the 10 as well.
Councillor Klikash.
Yes, Chair. The 5 meters really isn't high enough. I believe it should be at least 6 to 6.5 meters.
Okay. I tend to agree with you, Councillor Klikash, that for what our residents have been requesting, high enough garages, 12-foot garage, now you have 3 feet for a roof, like it's not gonna work. Going to your expertise, how much room do you feel you need for a proper pitched roof for a building like that? How many feet high, sort of at the highest point?
Well, you're on a standard garage that we build right now, it's 16 feet with a 4.5 pitch.
Okay, so if we wanted to add at least 2 more feet, you're talking about 18 feet minimum, which means you're more, yeah, so you need it, so, okay. I'm just asking for my own number that I want in my head for what people are asking for. I will go to Mayor Kakauka. Okay, I have to take that one off. There we go. Mayor Kakauka.
Thank you, Chair. If Councillor Julik can just mention what she mentioned about numbers, because the concern I have in regards to accessory buildings and whether it's detached garages with carriage houses or garden suites or that, is I'm sorry, like, I wouldn't want my neighbor in his backyard to build that and then all of a sudden have a garden suite or a coach houses about behind me. Why even have a backyard? You won't get sunlight. Like I have people that build overheight garages now, and I notice it with sunlight in my backyard. I know I don't have any trees, but I have shade all day because of 2 garages. They're overheight. So I'd be concerned when listening to everybody talking. But Councillor Duke mentioned some of the meters that she was talking about. I'd just like to get clarity on them again.
Hold on. There you go.
So currently what she was saying, and it's on page 17 of our booklet there, what is up on the screen, I believe. Or maybe even 16. Anyways, so R1 and R2 currently is 5 meters. R3 and R4 are 12 meters. RM1 is 3 meters. RM2 is 5 meters. Manufactured home is 3. Future development is at 10, so I'm assuming that would be rural residential. And highway commercial is 5. And so what they're asking for is a standard of 5, except for garden suites and coach houses may require additional height. So I think this would be the one is that we're just gonna put a no-go on that. Like that everything's only at 5 if, you know, and to your point, Mayor Kakauka, like if we already have people going higher than they're supposed to be, I agree. Like part of the reason people move to Tumbler Ridge is because they want the view. And if all of a sudden we're allowing people to put these additions in their yards, I don't know what that would look like. And I don't know that we could do it on a per case basis. So if we allowed it for every spot, you know, some spots it probably wouldn't matter. It wouldn't adhere, like it wouldn't cause any issues, but maybe it would on the other, and we can't do it on a case-by-case basis. So I also hear what Councillor Klikash is saying so far as if they go up, we need 6.5 meters in order to get the proper pitch for our snow loads. So I think we're in a bit of a conundrum, and I have no solution.
Councillor Klikash.
Well, the big thing with coach houses is you have to have an alley. And I don't see us developing any properties with alleys because it's too expensive. So that's not going to happen here. That was, there's a lot of alleys in the Vancouver Lower Mainland area, and that's why the coach house thing came in. But I don't think we'll be dealing with that here because there's snow removal, there's all kinds of things involved when you have alleys. So I don't think we're going to have coach houses here.
Thank you, Councillor. I guess we're at a conundrum with how we want to do this. Now, we talked about before having a coach house on top of a garage. I just don't think that's viable here. It's just going to be too high. So I don't know if anybody had that in mind, but the number just gets out there, especially since most of our 2-story houses are at least half sunk for a story. I do want to meet the need of a taller garage for people. I think that's a lot of people have a lot of toys that they want to have some room for, and Councillor Noxana wants to answer that. So go ahead, Councillor Noxana.
I'm just clarifying that your buildings on your land still can't be over 50% of your lot, correct?
Are you talking about square footage now?
So your parcel coverage can't go over 50% of your lot.
Yes, that's what I would call that a separate issue, but yes.
So it would take a very big garage to shade out an entire yard because it can't physically be that big. You can't take up that much of your lot. So if we're still enforcing the parcel coverage, if a building can be high enough to park your skidoo with a sled deck in it, or on a sled deck, that also keeps our residents' equipment safe from theft, vandals, anything like that.
Thank you, Councillor Noxana. And that's what I'm really sort of speaking to right now. I think there is a need for that, and I don't think it's an unreasonable one. There is a limiting factor. One of the houses I looked at a couple of years ago had 2 garages in their backyard and a shed. So our parcels are actually quite large, and you look at the front yards, they can build a pretty big garage back there. So I don't know how limiting it is, but I think we just need to make a decision. Do we like the 5 meter, or do we put it to 6.5 or at a minimum for higher garages? Councillor Julik.
That's what I was going to say. I think in order to move this along, I'm content because I trust Councillor Clickash. I'm okay to do it at the 6.5 meters. If we want more than that, I think I would like to have a report come back. I'd also like to take out garden suites and coach houses because it sounds like that's not feasible, and nor it sounds like it would have to be higher than the 6.5 meters if we were going to bring those in. My only other concern would be highway commercial, that it's only at 5 meters. I'm not sure why we would need highway commercial to stay at 5 or 6.5.
Mayor Kakka.
Thanks. Chair, and I understand where Councillor Julik is coming from. And it's not that I don't say I want to take the expertise of the councillors, but to me, when we're asking, should we increase it? To me, it's been like this for a reason in Tumble Ridge, and I'd like to hear from staff, whether it's a report or whatever. And it's not that I don't believe or have faith in Councillor Clickash, but the same aspect is if he's willing to have his neck put out in the line because I took the expertise from him and I voted. I think if I want expertise, I need to get it from staff so that if it's I'm careful how I say this now.
It's all good.
If it's not true to fruition, then there's accountability. That's the only reason it's pretty hard to hold a councillor accountable for my vote. So that's what I'd be looking at. But I'd like to hear from staff in that regards to if we increase it in regards to what Councillor Clickash says with in regards to the peaks and snow load, but also in regards to Councillor Noxana's comment of 50%, because I do not believe it's 50%.
Thank you, Mayor. Anybody want to put a motion on the floor? Councillor Julie.
I would like for staff to get back to us on the difference between the 5 meters to the 6.5 meters. And then, so I would say we put 20 on hold until we get that report back. I don't know that we need a motion. I think this is just asking for direction.
Mayor Kakka.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I think we would need a motion if we want something from staff. But again, I'll make the comment that I'd like to hear from staff. There might be reasons why this is there. They may be able to answer tonight. So we don't need the reports or whatever. Maybe we'll need a report, and that's fine too. But if we give staff an opportunity to speak towards those questions when they're asked, they may be able to answer as Chair, and they may not. And if they can't, then we can put a motion on the floor like Councillor Julik has and get the report to make sure we make the right decision that's going to be in these bylaws. And to me, it's probably going to be for a long time, probably past my time on council. So,
thank you, Mayor. Then let's do that question. Is staff prepared to answer the minimum height requirements if we were to allow for a 12-foot garage?
Do you want to take it? Sure. Yeah.
Chair and Council, so to the best of our recollection, there is no formal rationale of why 5 meters would be preferred over 6.5. I think it's just going to be aesthetically. When you look at the zoning bylaw, you can see the maximum height for the principal building in an R2 lot is 10 meters. So it kind of keeps it to the first story. Everything's kind of looking the same. Uniformity is probably just what it is. I don't see a large issue if it's council's will to go to 6.5 meters in order to allow a little bit of a higher ceiling that's in it. That's council's purview. To the mayor's comment about lot coverage, your amount of lot coverage will change largely depending on your zoning. Again, using an R2 zone, you have 33% is allowed to be covered in an R2 zone, not 50%.
Thank you. All right. Councilor Julick's thinking about it, and there you go.
So then I would say I would like to make a motion to have a report come back as to whether, a report coming back to us, the difference between going from 5 meters to 6.5 meters on, as a standard, as asked in this zoning bylaw. And I think that's all I need.
Just for clarity for myself, what do you mean by the difference?
Because currently what they're saying is increase the maximum size and height of accessory buildings, potentially 5 meters, because currently we're at 5, 3, 5, 3, 5. And so what they're asking for is a standardization. So the report, so R1 and R2 are at 5. What does that look at 6.5? RM1 is at 3. What does that look like at 6.5? RM2 and manufactured homes. And then highway commercial, I don't know why highway commercial is at 5. Because to me, commercial is commercial. I think commercial should be 10, and I'm fine with future development being at 10, because to me, that's rural residential.
Okay, before I ask for a seconder, is that clear enough for staff? Yes? Okay, thank you. All right, do I have a seconder on the motion? Councillor Noxana. And all in favor? Oh, sorry, discussion on the motion. All in favor? Opposed? None? Carried. Mayor Kukalka.
Can we ask for a 5-minute break, please?
Absolutely. Let's go for at least a 5-minute recess. So we'll come back at 7:05. so we are on number 21, please, if we can continue.
I'm sorry, Chairman. Actually, there's still a second half of the 20.
Okay.
We're talking, it's about the maximum size. So for the accessory building, we just discussed a height. So this is another part of the discussion is maximum size. Because that's also part of the what we heard from engagement that people like to have a bigger size accessory building. So for the current, I'm going to read through the current bylaw for accessory building. There's no, actually there's for residential 70 square meter, so 700, approximate 700 square feet. So that's for the residential R2. And then for R3 and R4 is 10% of the parcel area or 5% of the parcel area of R4. And then for the multifamily RM1 is 55 square meter. And RM2 is 55 as well, square meter. And then for manufacturer home park, it's the same, 55. And then town center commercial is 90 square meter, and general commercial is 90 square meter. So basically the engagement, what we heard is most likely for residential, people like to have a bigger accessory building than just 70 square meter or 700 square feet.
Okay, and do you have a specific recommendation or just that people would like?
We like to have the direction.
Okay. All right, I'll start with the CAO.
Which one? Just kidding. No, sorry. I don't know if there's some sort of a duplication or whatever, but we have covered off on this under item number 8 in our first part 1 of our workshop. So item number 8, Jen, I don't know if you've.
Yes, we discussed about it. Yeah, thank you for that reminder. So this is what we discussed last time. See if I can. Yes, people like the bigger accessory building. Okay.
Okay, so Councillor Klikash, could you lead us off?
Yes, the square footage of the buildings, especially if you've got another lot. People have asked me, in fact, if they could put a 3-car garage on the spare lot. And the spare lot is just, it's equal to the same size as the other one. So it's not encroaching on the limits for 33% coverage. And it wouldn't affect people as far as sunlight in their backyard.
No, thank you. And that's also, I think, when we had the discussion of that sort of garage with a coach house on top of it might work as an option as opposed to the ones in the backyard. Yeah.
In that instance, only if you got a spare lot behind you or beside you.
Okay.
So I think that could be increased to like a maximum of 1,800 square feet instead of 1,300.
Oh, okay, from item 8 that we discussed last time is what we're talking about there with the numbers. So that's on, item 8 earlier. From the previous discussion, if it is a double lot, the size of the accessory building should be allowed to be 1,300 feet squared as what we discussed previously. Okay, thank you, Councillor Klikash. Councillor Julik.
So what I see here on number 8 is that we like the allowable size, but we didn't actually come up with any numbers. And as the numbers were being read off, before I made any decision, I would like to have a chart in front of me saying specifically what we were sitting at, what we wanted before we allowed the zoning, just simply because, like Mayor Kakauka has said, like once we put this in, it's in. So to make some of that decision, even though we've said, yeah, we want to see something bigger, it sounds like there's a whole lot of things that are included in that. So I would like more information before I say before I vote on the maximum size.
Thank you, Councillor Julich. Mayor Kukalka.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I guess my comment would be in regards to number 20, with the maximum size or increasing the maximum size, I guess to staff, and if they can't answer, that's fine. We have a report coming in, we could just add to it. But would that not dictate the size of the building when we know the height we can go? If we're going to increase the height, and there was talk, it's right now, it's 5 for this one, 3 meters for this one, and such. But if staff comes back and says, oh, geez, we should increase to 6 meters or 6.5 meters in regards to accessory buildings, that would dictate approximate size as well for maximum, unless staff's prepared to answer that. And then I have another comment after that.
Thank you, Mayor. Staff, is there any chance of answering that today?
What's that? Not today. No. I think it's difficult for us to comment on that at this point.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. I will go to Councillor Noxanis. Next comment's unrelated?
Nope, same comment.
Same one? Okay, Mayor Kukalka, please.
Thank you. So the other comment would be, would we need a motion to add it to the report? Or would that be something that would be just added to the report in regards to the height maximum that we've asked staff to look at and bring back a concept? If we should increase or not increase, and if we do increase that, to me that would also increase our maximum size if you're going to increase the height. Would that be included in the report?
We don't need a motion.
Yeah, we understand that. We don't need the motion, though.
Thank you. All right. Councillor Noxana, please.
If your principal dwelling can take up 50% of your parcel coverage and your accessory building is included in that 50%, why would we dictate the size of an accessory building? We're understanding that people are having homes on their houses, but the size of your accessory building then is dependent on the size of your lot. We have people with larger lots, we have people with smaller lots, and it's dependent on the size of your house. We also have people with larger houses and smaller houses, and as we get new builds in town, this will come into play more than it does now. So I'm not sure why this is even a question. Why would we dictate the size of a building when it's already in here? We're saying how much of a lot we want covered, not the size of accessory buildings specifically.
I mean, I can answer that at least in part. You may not want a rancher to have a larger garage in the backyard than the building itself. I mean, that would dictate a absolute maximum, but we could still restrict that structure further. Go ahead.
Why not?
Because we decided as council, that would be why. I'm just saying you could set a maximum for a particular structure on a lot or not. Councillor Kagash.
Yeah, the size of the building is also dictated by the setbacks on the building and how far you have to be away from your house with a secondary building on your lot. So, and I think it's 33% in R2, not 50. Yeah. So that limits you to the type of garage that you can put on there. The other thing is, like the height that we were talking about, the 10-meter height would work for what I proposed there for the 1,800 square feet. So it's just what people would like to see in their separate lots. And these full lots with a single garage on it, a 24 by 26 garage, it looks kind of funny. And it doesn't bring any tax money in either. So the bigger the building, the more taxes we get.
A valid consideration. Thank you, Councillor Kagash. Mayor Kukalka.
Thank you, Chair. And I you know what, Councillor Kagash, I agree in regards to the double lots or the extra lots that they haven't got rid of lines yet. I think we just need to put a motion on the floor and debate that. What we're looking for. I just want to make sure it's clear that it is the owner has a double lot, and making sure that we have it in the right form. I hear from a lot of our residents that myself as a councillor previously allowed these people to build garages on their backside of their lots where a house should have been built. I've heard a lot of that. I've heard a lot of negativity of why we allowed it and stuff like that. So I think when you bring forward the concept of a larger garage and then you put the carriage suite on top or the garden, whatever they're calling them, I think that makes a lot of sense when we say about, you know, in regards to extra rental properties or whatever they may decide to do with that. Maybe it's for their own children and stuff like that when they come home. But to me, I think there's an advantage to that. When people are able to build that suite above their garages and stuff like that, whether it's a tax base or not, I think it adds residential space to our community. And I think if we would have done this years ago, we would probably at this point have those one-bedroom suites on top, or whether they're two-bedroom, whatever it works out to be. I believe that's a need. I believe it would probably have gotten away from the negativity of allowing some of these garages in the backside of properties that should have had a house first, because I've seen them where there's a garage, but their house is in front, and that's where I've heard it. I've heard it from directly to myself and why I would vote that in. And I think that would have got away from it, because it would have been looking like a house anyways. Yeah, it might have had a garage door to it, but I think we just need to make sure we have the right square footage there. And I would totally, at this point, I would support it. And I just think we need to make sure it is stated right. So it's not miscommunicated when somebody has that double lot. This is what you're looking for. And, whether we write in there that if you're going to build a 3-car garage, you also have to build that garden suite or that carriage suite on top of it if you decide to do it. Again, adds more residential property.
All right. Any further comments on the maximum size portion of number 20? Mayor Kakauko.
Yeah, I believe we were waiting for staff to bring that back in regards to when they talk about the height. You're talking about number 20, right?
I'm talking about, we're discussing.
Yeah, like I think we just had a discussion about needing that more information.
Yes, if anybody has any further comments before we move on, was all I was asking. And Steph, you're comfortable with where, good, thank you. And on to 21, please.
21 is regulations should be established about what can be permitted on a vacant residential lot, such as an accessory building with a maximum size and permitted length of time and 2 years. What that means is we're just trying to avoid the situation that there's a neighborhood, there's a vacant lot, and someone's supposed to put a single house there, but they don't. And then they give you a shed for some storage, and they just put on the site. So basically, we would like to see the principal building and then accessory building attached, comes together, not just the accessory building. So our suggestion is to put a time there saying without the principal building, the accessory building can only be there for example, 2 years. Then the principal building has to be on. Otherwise, this accessory building will consider not in compliant. So that's the suggestion, just to avoid a vacant lot with with a small shed with storage. Somebody just put something there, but they don't really use the site to put a house on.
Okay, I think we got that. Councillor Noxana, go ahead.
I think we need to go back to the second lot comments, that we'd need to be careful how this is worded. If we have people who don't have their lots combined, we want to ensure that they're able to use them how they intended instead of limiting their uses.
Thank you. Mayor Kakauka.
Thank you, Chair. I guess I just have a question for staff. Years ago, when properties were sold, there was a stipulation put on property. I believe it was a 2-year build or lose or something like that. And I believe the district ended up with some concerns there. So again, this to me is a red light. If I can get clarity on what happened back then, because I believe this to me sounds like similar to the same thing. We're going to put a 2-year stipulation, and then it didn't work out for the district side, is my opinion or my understanding, and I'd like to hear from that.
That's thank you. CAO.
Speak to it as well, or depending on what. Okay, so the 2-year stipulation, that was actually a covenant that was registered with land titles, and that was back in the day, the early 2000s, when Quintet and the mines first shut down and our property values went way low. And so you could buy lots there for, I don't know, very low, $2,000 or $3,000 possibly. And so that was to, so council of the day had put as covenants registered on those lots, and that was to prevent people buying the lots just on speculation, and so to encourage development. Now, in our current land sale policy, there is also a time limit, but it isn't as rigid as a covenant per se. So, and I think is it 2 or 3 years? 2 years. It is 2 years that they should build or must build or will build. I'll let her speak to that one because she's been working in the land sale stuff.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So in the land sale policy, it is stipulated if you buy an empty lot from the district, there is a expectation that development would happen within 2 years. The inquiries that I've received on those lots over the time that I've been here, the question has always been, well, what if we can't build in the 2 years, what will happen? And given the supply chain issues post-COVID, is 2 years reasonable to expect a full house to be built, given that we have a short build season? So, and depending when they get the title into their name. I have pointed out in the land sale policy that you can apply to council for an exception. So that would basically take us back to case by case. But just to let council know that that 2 year has been questioned. However, I've also used it as a stick for those that want to come in and speculate and sit on land for 5 years. So it's definitely good to have with an edge of flexibility.
Thank you. Mayor Kakauka. Oh, I guess I have to turn some off.
Thank you, Chair. And it's just a follow-up. What happened in regards to covenants that were put on all these properties, and I believe there's still properties that were purchased back in the day, that the 2 year never happened? And that's what I'm asking, because when we start putting timelines to stuff, and we've already seen what happened previously to covenants been put on properties, I'm just curious, because I know that for clarity, there's properties up top owned, and they were owned from back then, they've never had anything built on them. So if we put a 2 year on regards to if somebody decides to put a shed up for now, 2 years to build their principal home, but there was no traction previously, but I'd like to hear what happened with those covenants. But if there's no traction back then, why would we do it now? And to me, it would be a staff time thing, because now we got staff constantly, oh, they're up to 2 years, we got to get reports out and start hammering on these people. But to me, my understanding in regards to those covenants, nothing ever came of them.
Staff.
Thank you, Council. I think for this discussion to proceed and to gather all the correct and proper information that Council would need to satisfy what happened with those covenants, we would need to go into a closed meeting.
My apology.
Is there a motion for that, or?
We're not going into closed tonight.
Mayor?
Yeah, it is a follow-up, but I won't beat this one up, but if we could, just a direction, or I'll put a motion on the floor that staff have a discussion and close in regards to the covenants, so we have an understanding of that before we start putting stipulations in regards to the zoning bylaw updates. Because if there was no traction, I want to know what happened there first before I decide. I'm agreeing with 2 years, and if it doesn't happen, there's no repercussions anyway. So I just want clarity, and I don't want to do it close tonight, but just on whenever closed they can get it into.
So the motion is that at a future session, a closed session for this. Okay. Seconder on the motion, please. Councilor Noxana, thank you. Any discussion? Yes or no? No, not for that. All right. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Jewick.
Yeah, so 21, a lot of what Mayor Kakauka said, because I know that there's a few properties that haven't had things done with them and they're outstanding, and we have people with some older holiday trailers on them and older campers. And so I guess my concern is more about an unsightly premise. So if we get, understanding from Ms. Finnegan that, maybe needing some I would rather see something in here more around unsightly premises than specifically around a timeline.
Are you asking that for that now, or can we have that with the closed discussion?
Just as an idea.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mayor Kakaka.
Yeah, I just want to thank Councillor Julie for bringing that forward and in regards to that information. We have no bylaw against it. That is the concern, is there is none. We may try, or I guess staff, shouldn't say we because I don't do it, but staff does try, and I've heard about it, and I've definitely talked to staff and realized it, and I always thought there was, but that's actually not a bylaw. So when we put this in place in regards to it, that's what I had a concern about, is if I can build a shed or put a shed on my property, but in 2 years I got to have my permanent structure built or my primary structure, but I don't have to do that today. I can put my boats on there, my trailers on there, whatever, my car. There's nothing against that. So if we put that into play, what changes? Is there a bylaw coming into place as well? And if that's the case, I'd like to hear that, because that might change it. But if we start a bylaw process into that, or is anybody grandfathered into that bylaw? Because, I know people that have, when I was first on council, I had lots of people like, why can't I park it? Well, I don't know, it's bylaw. Obviously, that's why bylaw told you to move your trailer. No, they were trying to, do it with no bylaw, and it did work out on some applications, and, good on staff, but I'd be curious if there's a bylaw coming, because if there's no bylaw coming, what changes it today then, by having this in here? So maybe staff can answer that.
And staff is requesting.
Thank you. I just wanted to go back to the covenant thing. Just so council is aware, having a covenant registered at land titles for the 2-year build is not the same as having it in just having a 2-year or 3-year stipulation included in a policy or a bylaw. It's quite different. It's more binding when it's when there's a covenant that's registered, so it's a little different. So yeah, and also those covenants were not registered on all empty lots in town. It was just district-owned lots at that time.
All right, thank you for that. Only thing I wanted to really add here is I think, speaking to Councillor Noxana's point, that if there is a resident that has a secondary lot that is adjacent in some shares a border, if you will, some shape, fashion, or form, that their primary residence should count as the primary structure. I don't think that they should be forced to build another house if that's not what their purpose was when they bought the place. I don't know if you need a motion for that, but I think that's something that should be included in this point. Mayor Kakaka.
Thank you, Jerry. I would agree with you on your comments there, as long as they've removed the lot lines. If it's one property, it's totally different than 2 properties. So if they've removed their lot lines, totally agree with you. If they have not removed the lot lines or unable to remove the lot lines for whatever reason, then I think that is 2 different lots. But I'm going to go back to my other comment, and I'm just going to follow up from Councillor Julich. When we talk about this, and I have to build a primary location, even if I put a shed on there, if this goes through. But what's the difference today? And are we looking at doing a bylaw against people being allowed to park their trailers, their boats, or their broken down cars on their own lots coming forward in regards to unsightly?
Yeah, okay, there we go. Staff is ready to go.
Mr. Chair and Council, so that's exactly what the conversation we are having right now, is to get Council's input into how we are going to change the zoning bylaw in order to incorporate a lot of these things. So anything to do with land use, prohibitions, permitting, et cetera, is contained within the zoning bylaw. As the mayor alluded, we do not have the ability in place currently to deal with storage. While it is often acceptable that if you had a lot that was beside you that was not consolidated and you have got storage on there, it's kind of a given. You can kind of see that they're both together. But what happens when you've got storage across the street from you? Right? What happens when it's down the street from you? And that's where we get into a bit of subjective things where people have boats and trailers and all of their toys, and then they start bringing in their neighbor's stuff. And it becomes very hard from an enforcement standpoint, where we have to try and almost do an undercover sting to try and prove that money is changing hands, right? That's where it becomes in contravention of the bylaw. So the discussion needs to be had. It would be in the zoning bylaw, is where we'd be looking to add this language as to what council would like. Yes, we do have the untidy clause in our unsightly premise bylaw. That is very subjective to individuals. Of what is untidy to me might not be untidy to many of you. So it's really, if we have it black and white and not in gray and the subjectivity to it, it is much preferred from an enforcement standpoint.
Thank you, Chief. Councillor Julick.
I guess I would like, I think we could spend a lot more time on 21, so I guess I would like to have 21 be also something that we ask staff to come back to us with maybe some suggestions after hearing what we've spoken about tonight, what some of our concerns could be, because I don't think we're going to get it tonight. I guess, and I would actually like to get some clarification from staff right now. So this right now is just us going through this saying, okay, this is what we're thinking. This is going to come back again, correct, for us to go over one more time? Okay.
Yes, as my understanding is. Mayor Kukalka.
Yeah, it's totally coming back. I guess just to make a comment to Councillor Julick, if I may, and I think when we have that closed opportunity, I think it might give us a bit more clarity, and I wasn't sure if you were planning on putting a motion on there, so I was trying to get my number, the mic on right away, because I think that we'll get some of that clarity in there to bring it back, so.
And I'm also not 100% sure that's the right spot for it. It might have a different section which would deal with that sort of thing. But I'm very interested to hear behind the close discussion what's been going on there. Is there any other comments for 21, or can we move to 22? And staff, do you have what you need for 21? Okay. All right, thank you. And let's move on to 22. We have about 25 more minutes tonight before we'll have to see if we want to keep going or not, just to give everyone the warning. Do we still have our Zoom connection?
Jen.
Okay.
Jen, you're on mute.
Okay, that would explain that.
Sorry.
No worries. Number 22, please.
Sorry, yeah, 3.5 years, still not learn well. So this is a higher density policy that kind of encourage higher density development in and adjacent to the town center area. So just to support the commercial and also the best use of the infrastructure there. So our question is, do we want to pre-zone any area to reflect this OCP policy? So basically, you can see here, this is the yellow one again. There's a field around, close, adjacent to town center. I mean, we kind of talking about, okay, we might want to have a higher density development that close to the commercial to support a commercial. So the question is, do we want to pre-zone this area, like in this whole zoning bylaw update process? Because you will have a public hearing as part of the adoption process. So yeah, if you want to do it now to encourage that, yes, you can. Like, for example, you want to turn this piece of yellow into orange, which is a multifamily site. Yeah, if you want to, you can do it now. And since we had a public hearing process, so the landowner will be informed, and it will save your time in the future if you do something the same. You can just do it now. It just we just want to know yes or no. We don't have a suggestion. It's all up to council.
Okay, thank you. That was going to be my question if you had a suggestion. So, Mayor Kukalka.
Can staff tell us where that is?
Pioneer Loop.
Where that is.
When we zoom in, I believe this is.
Yeah, it's the Pioneer Loop between Mackenzie and Pioneer Loop.
Straight at a four-way stop.
well, do we want to pre-zone it? High density is the question. Councillor Julick.
No. I say no.
Mayor Kukalka.
Yeah, that should be left as is. I mean, I believe that was listed at one point, commercial and rec. Is it not still listed as that? It was zoned that. It was zoned that. That's why we have a pump track in that area.
It looks like pump track.
Commercial and recreation. Or parks, whatever. No, I get that, but that was also zoned at one time commercial. Future? Okay. Yeah, I'll put a motion on the floor that I'm not sure what we want to mark the area, but I'll put a motion on the floor that we do not do high density development on Pioneer Loop.
Seconder? That's what I understood it to be as well. Pioneer Loop, between Pioneer Loop and is it Mackenzie?
Just a little piece right here.
Yeah.
Is that the only one?
To the left of the pump track.
Yeah, or north. Well, you can.
That's why I said Pioneer Loop.
All right, guys, hang on a second. So as I understand it, we can choose sections to change the density if we want. For example, that Pioneer Loop section, I'm getting the feeling that we already know where most people stand on Pioneer Loop, but is there any section in town that you're looking to pre-zone higher density? So 2 parts there. So Councillor Julick.
I would say nothing east of Mackenzie Way. And then,
Yes, thank you. Motion on the floor is to not allow any high density in the Pioneer Loop area. Do I have a seconder?
could I amend that to nothing Pioneer Loop and north of?
We can do it as 2 separate ones. Let's just do one section at a time here. Councillor Dussault is seconding. Any comments? Any discussion? All right, motion on the floor. Let's vote. In the affirmative. Call the question, sorry. All in favor? All opposed? Carried. Okay, now, Councillor Julick, go ahead with your next section.
I would like to make a motion that we don't do any pre-zoning of high density north of, or east of Mackenzie Way.
And seconder? Councillor Clickash, discussion? Councillor Noxana.
Do we have to go through each section at this time, or can we just say we're not willing to pre-zone anything at this time?
After this vote, I was going to make that point.
Okay.
If somebody wanted to.
If we're going to go through the whole map, we need more than 20 minutes.
No, and that's just it. After this one, I was going to go with the other side. Does anybody want to make a section high density? So.
Just vote this one down then. I would just vote this motion down. Do we have a seconder?
We did. So let's just, I'm fine with saying what you asked for, and then I'm just going to make a question of.
All right, that works too. Yeah.
So, all in favor?
We're open for discussion.
Oh, sorry, Mayor Kukalka. Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I mean, like, there's a motion on the floor. It's a fairly important one. I'd like to understand why we would be against high density in certain areas.
The question was for pre-zoning. So the motion was to not pre-zone that area for high density. It doesn't mean that we can't bring it, as far as I understand it, it doesn't mean we can't bring it back in the future to try to do higher density.
Can you get clarity on that?
Are you asking for staff clarity?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The question is
Why?
can we pre-zone it at any time? Yes, we can. If somebody applies for a rezoning on it, council would review it as an amendment to a zoning bylaw. So does that clarify that? Okay.
You follow up? You're good? Okay. Councilor Judick, you're still on. Did you have a comment?
Yeah, it's all good.
Okay. Councilor Noxana.
My biggest concern is we are sitting in an open meeting saying we're not open to zone here or here or here. I would like any developer who would like to build housing in Tumbler Ridge to know I absolutely want to hear your proposal for any area of town. Will we approve it? I have no idea. But I'm not voting against every single area in town because we need housing here. So it makes no sense to me that we're going through and saying we're not high density, like we're not doing it here and we're not doing it here and we're not doing it here.
That's why I'm
Tumbler
going.
Ridge is open to housing. We want to hear your proposals.
Thank you. Mayor Kakaka.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And that was why I asked that question. Are we against higher in density when we're putting it on? Like, I understand why, I know why I put Pioneer Loop on, and there's some concepts there. We have a pump track, and there's some other concepts previously to that. That's why I was wondering why we wouldn't have it out there so people are aware that we are looking for, you know, they can come in even if it's zoned for higher density, it can be rezoned. But to me, we keep talking about how we have a housing crunch, and higher density fixes some of that when we start having apartments going in and complexes like that. And to me, when we're not willing to, you know, zone an area and wait for a developer to come forward and hope that this council will support it, they know it's supported because we have a zoning for it. That's the only reason I asked.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm going to take the responsibility for that one. I should have jumped on it before it started motioning section by section. But in the end, motions on the floor, I think we vote it, and then we can stop that practice. Councillor Knoxana.
I absolutely understand having it pre-zoned if that's what someone was looking for, but I think at this point, if we're open to having the conversation, it's better than saying, well, we've already zoned this. Why don't you take this piece of land instead of this one that could be more ideal for a contractor's needs? I think being open to the conversation is better at this point in Tumbler Ridge's life than having pre-zoning.
Okay. Thank you, Knoxana. Councillor Knoxana. Councillor Julik.
Yeah, for me, like, I just look at part of that and I think, well, I wouldn't want high density in the one area just because of the traffic more than anything. But if I'm understanding that we can do, like, change zoning whenever we want it to change zoning, I would just say I'm going to vote against my motion to just say, let's just do zoning as it comes.
Could we withdraw the motion if the motioner wishes to? No? Okay. All right. Then let's just call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Defeated? And I don't think I need to say anything more. I think we got it. So any other comments before we move on?
What the process is for zoning.
All right. So I think we're leaving this at, we don't feel the need to pre-zone anything. By all means, anybody has a proposal, we'd love to hear it. Come on down. All right, so that was number 22. On to number 23, please.
Okay. For number 23, so current zoning by law, there's no residential houses or mixed-use residential / commercial building allowed in a commercial area. So we just asking is incorporate regulation to promote the development of mixed-use building with commercial use on the ground floor and residential above the commercial use in the above the commercial use. Sorry, in the C1 zone. So that's our suggestion.
Okay.
Do you like to see a mixed-use building allowed in C1 zone?
Okay, thank you,
So
Councillor.
this mixed-use building will be having a commercial use at the first floor and the residential on the top.
All right, thank you. Councillor Knoxana, go ahead.
I'd absolutely be in favor of this. If somebody has a proposal, again, to build or renovate an existing property to have commercial on the bottom, residential on the top, or however that looks, amazing.
Councillor Julik.
I think we already have that. If staff can clarify.
Staff, is there an existing mixed usage? Not in C1, okay, only on C2. Councillor Julik.
Can I get clarification, the difference between C1 and C2?
Go ahead, Steph.
Dustin, answer that. Dustin.
Chair and council, so C1 is essentially the downtown core. So C2 is going to be our light industrial park and Mesa Place, but C1 is going to be essentially where we are right now, downtown.
Thank you. Mayor Kukoka.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, staff, because I was just going to mention that it's the downtown core. Do we know any properties we have available in the downtown core for sale?
Well, I'll
Just,
Oh, sorry. I only have room for 3, sorry.
don't be sorry. Just so council's aware, like I know of a few, but this would be, I mean, it'd be hard to me to renovate an existing building to do it, just because of probably the way the construction was back in the day. And I don't know, maybe it can happen, but to me, it would be new builds. So, and I'm just curious how many we have. We're making a decision for 4 or 5 lots or whatever it is. It'd be just nice to know. Yeah, that's what I thought.
What,
Site 24 and site 26, which is Southgate Street. If I may also add another comment, Mayor and Council. So just today, I actually had an inquiry with exactly this question, with an outside investor looking to a commercial property, potentially with mixed use on the top, specifically for staff, given that staffing is such at a critical level. So mixed use just screams flexibility, and again, it can always come back to the table, yes, no, it's going to fit the purpose or not. So the more we're open to being flexible, I think the more we're going to attract those out-of-town investors.
thank you for that. All right, Councillor Noxana.
I think that's exactly it. We're not just zoning for the buildings we have, we're zoning for the buildings we want. We're looking towards the future. What do we want in our town? We want business and we want people. We want an amazing downtown core and staff to be able to fill the roles in the downtown core. If someone wants to build a new bar and have housing above it, great. If someone wants to have some completely other plan, great. If they want to renovate a property that we already have and build apartments above it, great.
Thank you. Mayor Kakako.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And I totally agree with Councilor Noxana, and I think it's a phenomenal idea. I mean, you see it more and more. I mean, you definitely see it in the older communities or the older cities. I mean, it was always thought of to have businesses below and apartments above. I mean, if you build something, whether it's majority of the time it's retail, well, you have your customers above you. You know, whether it's convenience stores or food establishments, it's 100% supported, and I think it should be in there.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Julik.
So if we were to go ahead with this, I guess, like, I don't know what the building codes would be for C1. Like, so what would we be getting into if we were doing builds? Like, I'm concerned that there would be a loophole in there, I guess, because I don't know enough about a building code. So, okay, so I'm in C1, so is there benefit to building something in a C1 and then all of a sudden I can build 8 units above it? Like, am I just right out to lunch? Because that's totally possible too. Like, I'm just wondering if there would be a way for, like, or would we design the bylaw in such a way that we would make sure that it was still desirable, that people weren't taking advantage of the C1 building codes? Like, I don't know enough about building codes and zoning, so maybe I should just stop talking. Because I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with that being done. Like, I hear where everybody's going with that. I just wonder if there would be a place where somebody would take advantage if we didn't properly write the bylaw.
So just so I understand, Councillor, are you worried that instead of building a business, they're going to build a bunch of residential units and sell it, or just that they wouldn't meet the other codes and standards, or?
Yeah, like, just what does that look like?
Okay, I'll ask staff for clarity, see if somebody has an answer for you.
That's fine.
You're good? All right. On we go. Councillor Noxana.
My understanding is these buildings would still follow all the other rules and bylaws, all the other zoning bylaws. They can only be so many stories high, whatever. If someone can fit 8 houses in there, good on them. That's 8 people who have housing in Tumbler Ridge that potentially don't right now.
We'd still have to follow the rules.
Yes, Mayor Kakako.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think there's other criteria they have to meet, right? It's I don't need to worry about the building code staff. That's staff and building inspector and all that. And there's criteria they're going to have to meet before they can do it to make sure they have the proper needs for if they have residents above their buildings and stuff like that. There's, you know, the fire code and all that. And again, that's what staff's jobs is. And to me, we're saying that we support the idea of having a commercial property with residential properties above it, or we don't. And to me, I think, again, it's another need. I mean, you know, whether that individual puts retail in it and they use the residents above it for all their staff so that they don't have to worry about a staffing housing or staffing shortage. I mean, who knew back in the day that the grocery stores and that should have built housing above them? You know, you only have so many people. I mean, it's not just in Tumble Ridge, it's everywhere. You know, I think that was one of the things. You see more and more corporations, never mind commercial, putting residential, but a lot of these companies now are building daycares. Right, because there's a shortage of daycares, and we all know that there's short of ECEs. Like, you know, Loblaws, when they build a new office or a new warehouse, they're building a daycare in it because they know the needs there. So to me, when somebody wants to come forward and build commercial space and put residential on top, perfect. We need it. You know, it's just like the oversized garages with carriage houses above. Same thing. We need it.
All right, so as I understand, since we are supporting this, we don't need a motion. Any other comments? All right. Sounds like general support for number 23. Can we move on to 24, please?
Sure. For 24, actually, it's a build on to this 23 question there, topics there. So basically, we would like to see, make sure the permitted uses for C1 zone are comprehensive and flexible to promote a mix of commercial, residential, office, and institutional uses, especially support tourists. So this one is, we're not particularly looking for certain motion. It's more like, are you in general support? Because we are going to come back and with more uses proposed. So when you review that after the bylaw being drafted, then maybe you can discuss a particular use that you do or do not want to see under that C1 zone. So for example, if we put a dance studio, is that part of things that you want to see or not? Or if there's a daycare facility, yeah, do you want to see or not? We just talk about that. So for this 24, we're just seeking a general support in principle.
All right, thank you. Mayor Kakauka.
Yeah, it especially supports our town, and never mind tourists. It especially supports our community. That's what I'd prefer written there. I mean, no disrespect. I mean, we're definitely trying to advertise and broadcast. We're a tourism destination, and you know, I think our ACTAV department and all these groups and to me, tourism businesses are doing a fabulous job of doing that. But to me, if we're going to have a unit come here and build commercial below and residential up top, to me, it especially to support our community. That's my buy-in on that. I'm not a big favor of support tourists. That's just me. I'm not sure who council feels, but to me, it's to support our community. The tourism, you build it, they will come. Unless it's the concept that we're asking somebody to come and build on a C1 with residential on top with more tourism concept in their commercial spot. Again, to me, what supports our community? Bring a clothing store in, bring whatever. That supports our community, and that keeps our residents home. That's my philosophy on that.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to second it, I think we can, my position would be just especially support. I would remove that out. Whatever the proposal is, I'd love to look at it. If it is specific for tourism, I don't have a problem with that. If it's specific to anything else, I don't have a problem with it. Councillor Gillick.
I guess I just read the especially support tourists is to get us to understand that we need to be flexible in the C1 zone, because maybe it's a coffee shop, maybe there's a whole bunch of more things, but I know that that's one of the things that Northern BC Tourism and Destination BC have talked about. We need stuff for tourists to do when they get here. So that's how I read that question, and regardless, I'm in favor of it.
Thank you. Mayor Kakauka.
Yeah, I'm in favor of it's removed again. You know, no disrespect, but I think Wild River Adventures does an amazing job in this community. You know,
No, that's
what do tourists have when they come? They have that. What else do they have? What Nordic Mountain Society's done, built our trails, keeps them clear. That's just my philosophy on that. To me, I leave it if you guys want, but to me, when it says especially to support tourists, I mean, especially to support our community, our residents. They're here 365 days a year, 24/7. Let's go to town for a dentist appointment. That's what I look at. I look at the things you and your husband do, Roxanne, or Councillor Julik, sorry. You know, what our ACTAV department does. All of our non-for-profits, the ATV club, the sledding club, I mean, we're sled town champions for 2023, come on. Like, it's, you know, stuff like that, that's why I think that's egged me when it says that, because to me, I'm here for my community, I'm here for my residents. And to me, when we see that, to me, it should be for, it's for our residents, because there's not always going to be tourism here. Like, they're not here 365 days a year, but our residents are that need the, you know, whether it's another coffee shop, clothing shop, dentist, chiropractor. I can, you know, geez, I wish I won the lottery. I could have a lot of businesses running here, but like, that's why I say to support, especially to support our residents. We need that chiro, we need a dentist and stuff, but again, that's up to council. I have an issue with it, but.
Mayor Kakowka.
Perfect. I'm going to put a motion on the floor to remove on number 24, especially to support tourists.
Seconder. Councillor Julick, thank you. Discussion on the motion. Okay, I'm just going to say I'm in support of the motion, and let's call a question. All in favor? Apparently, it was not controversial. Carried. So the motion is to remove especially support tourism and just have a general statement for commercial, residential, office, and institutional users. And any other comments? What'd you put? Oh, don't worry, I'm noticing that time. Okay, so I would say that's agreement on 24 with the amendment. And as was kindly pointed out to me, we have 2 minutes remaining. If we wish to continue, I will need a motion to continue past 8 p.m.
Yeah, can't make the motion until you call.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Then let's do one more. 25, please.
Okay. For 25 and 26, they are basically talking about the same thing. 26 just more specifically. So it's talking about the interface planning issue. In the current zoning bylaw, there's no requirements if industrial or commercial use land that adjacent to a residential. So there's no requirement about what should be done to actually help to protect residential being impacted by the other land uses. So we would like to suggest to adding a landscape requirement, that types of screening method that kind of put it onto the industrial/commercial developments when it adjacent to the residential uses. We will say, oh, we would like to see landscaping buffer between these two uses. So that's what that 24 and 26 about.
25 and 26. Okay, thank you. Any comments? Mayor Kakowka.
I'd just like to ask staff, do we have this concern? Do we see an issue where we have commercial adjacent to residential? Just curious, because I'd be curious why it would be put there when I realize the zoning. Unless I can drop the map.
Nothing to comments? Or we're saying that there are no overlaps at this point in time?
I don't think
Not that we can think of.
So not an issue as we don't have residential and commercial. Yes, I have 40 seconds to call it. So. Okay, so as I understand, we don't have an issue right now. Now that it is 8 p.m., I would need a motion to continue.
I'll still make the motion.
Seconder? Thank you, Councillor Glikash. And go ahead, Mayor Kakowka.
Yeah, it's going to make a comment that I will not be supporting the motion I put on the floor. Again, it's 3 hours of meeting, and to me, not only for myself, but staff's been here since 7:30 this morning, and I don't think it's fair that we keep staff past that time.
Thank you, Mayor. Any other comments? Call the question. All in favor? All opposed? In that case, we're going to adjournment.
So moved.
Seconder on adjournment. Thank you, Councillor Dussault. All in favor? We are adjourned.
Good night, Jen, Brittany.